Okay, it's 6 o'clock Central African time. Very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us for the Monday edition of Rise and Shine, starting in a few moments. But first, here's your news with Jwalani Tulongwepe.
SABC News, the African perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. South Africa's Department of International Relations says it has sent SANDF helicopters to look for the missing Ekurhuleni MMC Andile Mgwevu, who has gone missing in Mozambique. Mgwevu and other 3 people went missing in Chokwe in Mozambique after their vehicle was swept away by floods. The area has been affected by recent heavy rains, which also affected the Limpopo and Mpumalanga provinces. One occupant of the vehicle has been found safe and is in contact with the South African rescue teams who are working alongside Mozambican authorities. DIRCO spokesperson Clayson Munyela.
The mission has also made contact with the only person that managed to get out of the vehicle at the time of the incident. It was established that there were 5 people in the vehicle. The status of the other 4, and this includes the MMC, is yet to be confirmed. We've also been told that the South African National Defence Force will send 2 Oryx helicopters to Mozambique to assist with search and rescue operations.
Meanwhile, Mozambique's MPs have agreed to donate 2 days' pay, about $42,000 in total, to support those affected by floods that have killed more than 100 people. Weeks of heavy rainfall have battered Mozambique, South Africa and Zimbabwe, with rescue operations still underway and fears of further flooding. The internet monitoring group NetBlocks says Uganda has deployed social media filtering measures in the aftermath of Thursday's contentious presidential elections, whose results have been dismissed by the opposition. The watchdog says while internet access has largely been restored in Uganda, some content may still be restricted because of the filters. Some connectivity was restored hours after the country's leader of 40 years, Yoweri Museveni, was announced as the election winner. More people have died of cholera in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo amid a shortage of medical supplies to curb the spread of the bacterial disease. Authorities say 182 people recently contracted the disease in the city of Uvira in the conflict-torn province of South Kivu. The SABC's correspondent, Chris Ochamringa.
The cholera cases have been reported in the Ruzizi plain of Uvira in eastern Congo. Health officials say more than 180 people have been infected in recent weeks, but their teams face a medicine shortage, raising fears that the disease will spread further. The DRC declared a cholera outbreak in May last year after cases rapidly increased in areas affected by floods and conflict. The United Nations described the outbreak as the worst in 25 years, after more than 64,000 people were infected and 1,800 others died.
At least 21 people have died and dozens more have been injured after 2 high-speed trains collided in southern Spain. The incident occurred when a train travelling from Malaga to Madrid derailed near Adamuz in Andalusia, crossing onto the other track where it hit an oncoming train. The BBC's Barry Caffrey has the details.
Now, we have actually heard from Pedro Sanchez, Spain's Prime Minister, who said the government was working with the emergency services. He said that tonight is a night of deep pain for Spain due to the tragic railway accident at Adamuz. He said he wanted to express his most sincere condolences to the families, friends and loved ones of the victims. And he said, no words can alleviate such immense suffering, but I want them to know that the entire country stands with them in this extremely difficult moment.
For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jolani Tulongwepe.
SABC News, the African perspective.
Wake up
Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only from Africa's broadcast capital to the furthest corners of the globe. This is Rise and Shine. Every weekday mornings on Channel Africa.
It is a Rise and Shine here on Channel Africa. We're coming to you live from our Johannesburg studios in South Africa. Brand new day. Happy Monday, everybody, as we start a new week as well. Lots that we're going to be covering on the show. Of course, we're coming from elections that took place last week in Uganda. So, as you can expect, we'll be updating you on that. We are on channelafrica.co.za. We're live streaming on YouTube via @ChannelAfrica1. That very same handle is where you can locate us on the different social media platforms and on the SABC Plus app via mobile phones. I'm Asanda Beda. A happy Monday to you, colleague.
Happy
Mr.
Monday,
Peter
Asanda.
Ndoro. How are you?
Yeah, did you have a good weekend?
Yeah, you had an action-packed with soccer weekend.
Absolutely exciting. Football, AFCON, Manchester United beating Man City with Michael Carrick, our new manager. So it was delightful. Yes, thank you very
I
much
just saw
indeed.
from all the comments on social media that everybody was glued to football, and I was having a chill weekend.
So what's coming up on the program today? We're going to be looking at a number of things. I know Asanda's going to talk to you about the Ugandan elections. I love business. So World Economic Forum opens up in Davos with world leaders, business giants and policymakers gathering under the theme A Spirit of Dialogue. Donald Trump, I wonder if he's paying attention. We'll ask what Africa stands to gain at this meeting of global power from investment and energy, security, technology and also economic growth.
Of course, we go to Uganda, where the president, incumbent Yoweri Museveni, has been declared winner of this year's elections that took place last week, Thursday. And an announcement that has been rejected by main opposition leaders, especially Bobby Wine, who says that there was fraud in these elections. We don't know if there'll be a declaration of a recounting, but at this point it's been announced that President Yoweri Museveni is indeed about to start his 7th term in office and serve the country as their president again. So that story will be getting analysis on that. We know that the internet that was shut down last week has now been intermittently returned, but not fully, of course. So we'll figure out in terms of protest action that is now being seen as having started in the country and how far that will go. So all things Uganda, I guess, today mostly.
Es-tu préoccupé par quelque chose? Es-tu passionné par les questions qui comptent? As-tu une voix qui mérite d'être entendue? Eh bien, nous avons la plateforme parfaite pour toi. Téléphone-nous ou fais-nous un WhatsApp au +27 66 408 87 42 et nous te rappellerons. Sois dans la conversation.
Salut Channel Africa, ici Beno le diamant rouge et Binal Sport depuis le Cameroun, le pays des lions. Voilà.
Sois dans la conversation. Il ne s'agit pas seulement de parler, mais c'est ta chance d'exprimer ton point de vue, de partager tes opinions et de t'engager avec une communauté qui valorise ton avis. Suivez-nous sur les réseaux sociaux, visitez notre site www.channelafrica.co.za et préparez-vous à partager vos points de vue sur Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Keep Africa in your hands. Connect to our website for all your news, sports, and cultural updates. channelafrica.co.za.
It's time now for our daily Africa Roundup. Now, each morning, just after the 6 o'clock news, we bring you a concise update on the key developments shaping the continent and the world that's played out in the past 24 hours. This with insights from our team of journalists, analysts and newsmakers as they place the day's biggest stories into context and helping you stay informed, connected and prepared for the day ahead. Let's begin with this story. Uganda's Electoral Commission says that President Yoweri Museveni has won the country's 2026 presidential election, extending his grip on power after a closely watched vote. Our correspondent Michael Baleke reports from Kampala.
Uganda remains calm but cautious following the announcement of the election results. President Yoweri Museveni was declared the winner on Saturday, beating 8 other candidates. Since then, we have seen only limited and subdued celebrations, mostly away from the public streets. More people are out and about, preparing for a new week. Many Ugandans say they are relieved the election period is over and are keen to return to normal life and business. Security patrols were visible overnight, and the situation was largely peaceful, with no reports of major violence since the results were announced. The opposition continues to dispute the outcome, especially in some parliamentary races, with several candidates indicating they plan to challenge the results in court.
Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni has accused the opposition of being terrorists in a victory speech to supporters of the ruling party after being declared the winner of the presidential election.
The opposition were lucky because 10 million of my people did not turn up. They would have been embarrassed badly. Because you see, we got 8 million votes about, but remember, we have got, when we reviewed the membership on the 6th of May, you remember we had 21 million members and 18 million of them are voters. But we are now talking of 8 million who turned up. So the opposition, and many of them who did not turn up are our members. 10 million of them did not turn up. So we must find out why. So the opposition are lucky, because if all our members turn up, there will be no opposition in Uganda, I can assure you.
Meanwhile, Ugandan opposition leader Robert Kyagulanyi, otherwise known as Bobby Wine, says that he narrowly escaped a police and army raid on his home. The whereabouts of Kyagulanyi and his remains unclear. He spoke in a video message released on Saturday.
My wife and I have been under house arrest since the 15th of January when we had elections. And yesterday, our house was raided by some police officers together with a number of other unknown individuals in plain clothes. They used ladders to climb over our fence. They cut off our electricity, they cut off our cameras, and they were being assisted by a helicopter that was hovering in the sky of our compound and providing them light as they were doing what they were doing. Amidst that raid, I was able to use my skills and escape my house. But I know they're looking for me. But even if they succeed and get me and do whatever, I want to say this to you, fellow Ugandans. First and foremost, we reject whatever is being declared by Mr. Byabakama, because those so-called results that they're declaring are fake and they don't in any way reflect what happened at the polling stations or what is at the declaration forms.
The United Nations has warned that cuts to humanitarian aid in Nigeria have pushed over 1 million people into extreme hunger. The agency says Nigeria, along with Niger, Chad and Cameroon, is among the countries worst affected by food insecurity, driven by ongoing conflict and widespread displacement. Tessem Akende reports from Jos.
UN, through its World Food Programme, says the aid cuts have shot malnutrition levels from serious to critical, especially in northern Nigeria, where the effect of an insurgency is worse. Last year, the U.S., a leading donor for global aid support, reduced its budget by around $8 billion. The condition, according to Doctors Without Borders, has contributed to malnutrition, leading to the death of over 600 children last year. The World Food Programme projects that millions of children in Nigeria and across the West African region will be exposed to acute malnutrition this year if nothing is done. It says over $450 million will be required to sustain humanitarian support across the region in the next 6 months. The Nigerian government says it is exploring local solutions to the problem.
The South African government has declared a national disaster in several provinces hit by severe flooding, including KwaZulu-Natal on the country's east coast, and Mpumalanga, Limpopo, as well as the Western Cape, which has also been affected by wildfires. Heavy rains continue to batter the country, causing rivers to overflow, bridges to submerge, and widespread damage has been caused to infrastructure. Dozens of lives have already been lost, and Cooperative Governance Minister Velinkosi Hlabisa tells us more.
The Premier has said approximately 2 billion rand in Mpumalanga. The province cannot afford to meet the reconstruction to that magnitude. We also heard that in Limpopo, the repairs about 1.7 billion and the reconstruction about 4 billion rand. Obviously, the Limpopo province also cannot on its own able to meet this cost.
That's how we come to the end of this Monday's edition of the Africa Roundup. We'll bring this to you again tomorrow after the 6 a.m. news. But do stay tuned as our colleague Peter Ndoro gets into conversation with our resident analyst, Mighty Jamie. They'll be looking at stories that have happened over the weekend and what we can expect to develop in the space of news in this new week.
Across Africa, communities rise with the promise of clean water and clean sanitation. The African Union's 2026 theme calls us to action.
It's about mobilizing real commitments, securing climate-resilient water and sanitation projects, and ensuring that water becomes a driver of sustainable development and prosperity across the continent.
A landmark moment, not only for Africa, but for the global movement for access to safe water for all.
Assuring sustainable water availability for every home, every village, every nation. This is the Africa we want.
Channel Africa, the African perspective.
New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
So it's Monday, and that means it's time for the Roundup Wrap, our weekly segment where we look back at the biggest news stories and events from the past week across Africa and beyond, especially where global developments could have a real bearing on the continent. And to help us make sense of what it all means and what it could signal for the days ahead, we're now joined by our Pan-African political commentator, Mighty Jamie. A very good morning to you, Mighty. Jamie, always good to talk to you. I hope you had a good weekend.
Morning to you, morning to all the viewers and listeners. Yes, I did have a good weekend, late Sunday because of the AFCON final. But yeah,
Gosh,
here we are.
I tell you, there was so much football and AFCON seemed to have gone on forever, but it was a good ending, I think.
It was a good dramatic ending. What a game, what drama, what sensationalism. It's going to be one for the ages. I'm sure the soccer analysts will be talking about it ad nauseum.
And another event that people will be talking about ad nauseum, the Ugandan elections. Surprise, surprise, Yoweri Museveni wins again. What is interesting for me is ever since he became president 1,000 years ago, his popularity at the polls has been in steady decline, much like the ANC in South Africa, except for one freak year, 2011, where he raised it up to 68%. But 2006, 60%, 2016, 61%, 2021, 58%. What did he do right that he miraculously got 71% this year? I mean, that would suggest that either he walks on water or I don't know what he did.
Peter, you're very tongue-in-cheek this morning. Well, I must just be blunt and say that it does not look to be that there was any credibility whatsoever with the elections in Uganda for a variety of reasons. The electoral environment was not favorable. The internet shutdown, I think, was a form of trying to prevent people from mobilizing and organizing. And, I think this is just a continuation of the trend that we saw in Tanzania, where, the ballot stuffing may have been too zealous this time around because they were trying to maybe close a gap that was much bigger than in the previous instances where they could comfortably win with low margins. I think in this instance, there was so much desperation, perhaps, that they had to stuff the ballot boxes so much more. And it really puts Uganda in a very funny position in terms of the health of the democratic project in Uganda, because there is none. I mean, Museveni came in talking about people should not hold on to power until they're dead, or whatever his quote was. And now he is proving to be that very same person. And, you know, his legacy is going down as somebody who is definitely compromised. And he has so many family members who are involved in the administration of the state of Uganda that it looks as if they are preparing and building up for dynasty there. And it's taking me back to those Ali Bongo periods. And it looks as if that's the only way now that Uganda will have any transition, is if at some point there is a coup as opposed to a democratic election, because what is happening with Bobby Wine is seemingly very, you know, eerily similar to what happened to previous challenges to Museveni. And if you recall, one of the, I can't remember his name right now, I think it's Kisi Ege, if I'm not
Kisa
mistaken.
Besigye.
He was yes, he was challenging Museveni for decades, going in and out of jail, getting international attention, but because of the nature of the dictatorship, he then became this figure who occupies that role but has no real pathway to power. So yeah, I don't think it's necessarily healthy for Uganda that it's going this particular direction. And they've had a few candidates there who have been showing how absurd the gerontocracy moment is, because there's even a gentleman there who won, I think, a seat in one of the constituencies who does not look as if he's mentis compis or can actually be operating, you know, a car, a vehicle, a computer, but all of a sudden he's being, voted in this peculiar process, also with very high margins. So the margins to me are not indicative of any credibility whatsoever. And it's so uncomfortable to have to say that he won this election when it seems so patently obvious that this is a continuation of some of the incidents that we've seen across Africa. The African Union.
I guess this is yet another test for Africa's leaders at the African Union. They're fully aware of the things that go on in these countries across the continent around elections, and yet they seem powerless to deal with their fellow members.
Powerless or unwilling, Peter, because I think it's a test indeed, but it's one that they failed, and they failed spectacularly. I looked at social media and I was looking at the reactions that were coming from various entities. But when the African Union issued that congratulatory statement, it seemed as if all of the youth of Africa, and here I'm using youth very loosely to mean people under the age of 35 or 40, whichever one you prefer, but they were very, very offended and very, very aggrieved at the fact that the African Union took a stronger and clearer moral position on the issue of Venezuela than they did on the issue of Uganda. And seeing some of the congratulatory messages which started trickling in yesterday, many people were pushing back towards that. So if there was a test for the African Union as an institution that it's supposed to hold democratic norms, standards, and values, it failed that test right now. And perhaps we'll have a legitimacy crisis down the road, because how do you continue to claim to be an institutional leader at a continental level in a continent which has a median age of 20 or so, when those people do not recognize your authority and view you as part of the problem in and of itself. So it was a failure for the African Union. It was a failure for some states as well, which claim to stand up for democratic values and principles. We're in a very weird period right now in Africa where there's a war in Sudan. There's a crisis of democracy in Tanzania, Uganda, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, just to name a few. And we have African nations that are very vocal on the international stage, but are unwilling to really call out the UAE for supporting the rapid support forces in Uganda, in Sudan, unwilling to call out their peers here. And we have an African Charter which has signed and ratified by all of these African nations, an African Charter on democracy, elections, and governance. And they never followed that. And then they said that the African peer review mechanism would be the mechanism that would really improve democracy in Africa. And that too is failing. So at this point, the institutions have been hollowed out, they've failed, and I don't think they have any legitimacy when it comes to commentary on free and fair elections in Africa.
All right, let's stay in the region. Tanzania, President Samia Suluhu Hassan expressed regret over the internet shutdown in October's elections last year and the 6-day crackdown. I don't think she said sorry for killing people and hasn't told us how many people died. And although she's pardoned over 1,700 people, I'm pretty sure that most people are still not satisfied until some kind of admission comes through. And I wonder if this isn't trying to do a little bit of PR internationally, because Tanzania has been taking hits, hasn't it?
It has been taking hits. And I mean, all of this commentary that she made is typically something that we would respond by saying, cry me a river, because these were self-inflicted actions. So Tanzania has been taking a big hit because in this particular election, and it may still very well happen for Uganda as well, the observer missions were very harsh in their reflections and reports on what happened in Tanzania. And as such, I think that the international community definitely backed off, and Tanzania has been struggling to get some support that it has been enjoying in the previous years. And it may very well be that tourists have trickled to a certain extent, and it's justifiably so, because we have seen or heard activists say that there were about 3,000 people who were killed during that particular election. We saw the extent of repression and suppression, including these arrests that now she's trying to pardon people for. So it is a little bit too late, and I don't think it's going to fix the fundamental issues. My colleagues in Tanzania have said that it's back to business as usual. Life does go on. Unfortunately, even in failed or failing states, people will still send their kids to school. They will still go to work. There will still be tuk-tuks and all of that, and trot-trots and all of that on the road. But unfortunately, in terms of the democratic project and the stability or the credibility of the leadership of the people of Tanzania as it stands right now, they are on some kind of a PR exercise because they fell so much from grace in the last election. And I think that's all that this is. She understands now that she made a big mistake in terms of the credibility side of things, and she's trying to fix it. Whether or not anybody will buy that, I don't think so, because of the fact that there still is no accountability for what happened, and there's still no transparency as to who was killed, why were they killed, by whom. And that's something that is necessary, not only for the principles of natural justice and procedural justice, but also for the sake of the people being able to understand whether or not they can really trust this administration going forward, and what reforms will be necessary to prevent it happening again.
So what's your take on Guinea? General Mamadi Doumbouya sworn in as president. This, of course, after he seized power in 2021 in a military coup. He promised that he wasn't going to run for the presidency, as they do. He did, and won by an overwhelming victory, we're told. Your thoughts on this? I mean, it sounds almost like Hosni Mubarakish, where a soldier becomes president and you know what happens next.
Yeah, I think we just have a new dictator on the continent. This is what it looks like. From the period of the coup up until now, we've basically seen him position himself to be able to then claim that his current hold on power has legitimacy. As you know, whenever there is a coup, whenever there's a junta leading a country, there's a lot of pushback from the regional actors. There's a lot of pushback from the international community. He's taken very strategic moves. He's distanced himself from the alliance of Sahel states, and he's tried to play it cool in respect to some of the geopolitical tensions which come about as a result of those type of alliances. But when it comes to evaluating this particular, transition to power, it looks as if we do have a new dictator on the continent. And maybe he'll be Mugabe, and maybe, he'll be Flight Lieutenant Jerry Rawlings. I mean, the options are they're still divergent, but as it pertains to a democratic project, this is not really a real democratic project, if you were to ask me.
Mighty Jamie, there was so much more we could have talked about. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but as always, great talking to you, and have a great week ahead, and we'll chat on Monday.
You too, Peter, and a great week to all the listeners and viewers.
All right, that's our regular commentator who rounds up the week that was. Mighty Jamie making sense of the Ugandan elections and also what's happened in Guinea and Tanzania. There were so many other stories, of course, but sadly we're out of time. It's 6:30. It's time for your news headlines. Here's Jolene Tulongwepe.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. Making headlines. South Africa's Department of International Relations says it has sent SANDF helicopters to look for the missing Ekurhuleni MMC Andile Mgwevu, who has gone missing in Mozambique. The internet monitoring group NetBlocks says Uganda has deployed social media filtering measures in the aftermath of Thursday's contentious presidential elections, whose results have been dismissed by the opposition. And finally, at least 21 people have died and dozens more have been injured after two high-speed trains collided in southern Spain. I will have details on these and other stories at 7 o'clock.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Let's find out what's happening in the world of sport. It was, of course, a very busy weekend, as we're about to find out from Fikile Lingwati. Good morning.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Good morning, Asanda. We kick off with football news from Morocco. Senegal have been crowned 2025 Africa Cup of Nations champions with a dramatic 1-0 win over Morocco at the Prince Moulay Abdallah Stadium in Rabat on Sunday evening. An extra time goal from Pape Gueye was enough to secure the win for the Teranga Lions as Morocco star man Brahim Diaz missed a penalty with virtually the last kick in regulation time. Walid Rodriguez's Chargers were aiming for the second AFCON title since their maiden win in 1976, but it was Pape Thiaw's team who rewrote the script to seal their second AFCON crown after winning the competition in 2023. Morocco will feel crestfallen after coming so close to winning in front of their home fans, and you have to have sympathy for Diaz. But Senegal will point to their disallowed goal and fantastic strike from Gueye to prove they were deserved winners of the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations title. Qatar's Nasser Al Attiyah won the Dakar Rally for the sixth time in the car category as Argentina's Luciano Benavides won by 2 seconds on two wheels, the narrowest margin ever. Al Attiyah, with Belgian co-driver Fabien Lecquin, had led overnight after taking his 50th career stage win and made no mistakes as he handed Dacia a first victory at their second attempt in the two-week event held entirely in Saudi Arabia. The 55-year-old Qatari Al Attiyah also won in 2011, 2015, 2019, 2022 and 2023. Ford's Nani Roma finished second, 9 minutes and 42 seconds behind, and teammate Matthias Ekstrom was third after winning the final stage. Last year's winner Yazid Al-Raji of Saudi Arabia withdrew in the opening week after mechanical problems. Al Attiyah is excited to win.
You know, it's not easy because it's 13 days, in the desert, and I'm really so happy.
Benavides had earlier taken the motorcycle title after American Ricky Brabich lost his way and saw victory slip through his fingers, and the Argentine is in disbelief.
It's unreal. I cannot believe it. I never stopped dreaming. Today I wake up with full of energy, full of motivation, thinking just on myself, on what I can do, and try to trust on me. That was the key for the success this Dakar, and I did it for myself. This is unreal, and to win by just 2 seconds is unreal. I missed the last two corners. I almost died out there, but it paid off. I cannot describe this moment. It's unreal.
Tennis news. Third seed Mira Andreeva beat Victoria Mboko of Canada in straight sets in all-teenager Adelaide final to win a first title of the year in Australia. This was the fifth WTA Tour title achieved in a sixth career final, her first at WTA 500 level. And finally, golf news. Spain's Nacho Elvira claimed the Dubai Invitational after Shane Lowry's final hole collapse handed him the first European Tour win of 2026. Lowry had surged into the lead with a birdie at the 15th, but a double bogey on the 18th, finding both bunker and water, opened the door for Elvira. The Spaniard, who had battled early bogeys, held his nerve with a par finish to seal victory on 10 under par, one shot clear of New Zealand's Daniel Hillier. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Figile Lungwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Still to come, we look at the Arab Coordination Group, or ACG, and the African Development Bank Group, or AFDB. They've launched a new phase of their partnership, and this is aimed at scaling co-financing, mobilizing private capital, and accelerating Africa's economic transformation. We'll hear more from the Channel Africa's Tutongo Beni, one of our reporters there, who's compiled a report on that story. That's here on Rise and Shine.
Nkhanza zokhudza amuna ndi azimayi kapena kuti gender-based violence GBV zikuwononga mioyo komanso kuphwasula midzi zikuchitika m'manyumba, m'masukulu, malo ogwirira ntchito ndipo kwambiri mwakachetechete, koma sizikuyenera kupitirira. Mukazimva yankhulani, ngati mwakhuzidwa funani chithandizo, chifukwa kusachita chilichonse sikuthandiza. Mverani kuma wireless onse 14 a SABC kuchokera lachitatu pa 23 mwezi uno wa Julai kuti mumve zokambirana, malangizo, masewero, zionetsero za maphunziro ndi mafunso okhuza nkhanza za amuna ndi azimayi ndi akatswiri, anthu opulumuka ku nkhanzazi, kukhazikitsa lamulo komanso dziko lonse lokhuzidwa ndi nkhanzazi. Zonsezi pa wireless yomwe mumayikonda ya SABC. Imbirani pa nambala 0800 428 428 kuti munene za nkhanzazi kapena kupeza chithandizo. Nkhanza zokhuza amuna ndi azimayi zimatha ndi inu. Uthenga ukufikani kuchokera ku SABC.
60 years of broadcasting Africa to the world. Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
Yeah, Channel Africa keeping you informed about everything that matters about your continent. Yeah, now it's time for us to take a look at what's been happening in the world of business and economics. And at the desk this morning, we say good morning to you, Nosipo Zuma.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. In your business news this hour, Libya's central bank has announced a 14.7% devaluation of the dinar. The move sets the exchange rate at 6.3759 dinar to the US dollar, the currency's second such adjustment in less than a year, citing the nation's political and economic turmoil. The move follows a 13.3% devaluation in April 2025, which had set the exchange rate at 5.5677 dinars to the US dollar. The executive board of the International Monetary Fund, which is the IMF, has completed the latest review of Ethiopia's current financial program. The move will lead to the disbursement of around $261 million to the government. Ethiopia secured its $3.4 billion lending program with the IMF in 2024 as part of a far-reaching economic reform package that also includes an overhaul of its external debt. Staff of the fund and the government reached a deal on the review, the fourth under the program, last month. 8 European countries have warned that U.S. tariff threats over control of Greenland threatened transatlantic relations and risk a dangerous downward spiral. The latest response from key NATO countries, including U.S. allies France, Germany, and the United Kingdom, among others, comes after U.S. President Donald Trump threatened additional tariffs on countries that had sent small contingents of troops to Greenland for military exercises amid concerns about the region's security. Showing Bryce Peace reports that Greenland is a self-governing territory of the Kingdom of Denmark.
The joint statement by Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, the Netherlands, Norway, Sweden and the United Kingdom also said that the pre-coordinated Danish military exercises conducted with allies responded to a commitment to strengthen Arctic security and pose no threat to anyone. Trump threatened an additional 10% tariff on the 8 countries, increasing to 25% on June 1st until the US was able to purchase Greenland.
And finally, oil prices are up slightly today after the previous session rise, narrowing chances for a U.S. attack on the major Middle Eastern producer that could disrupt supplies. Brent crude is trading at $64.19 a barrel, up 6 cents. U.S. West Texas Intermediate for February rose 9 cents to $59.53 a barrel. That contract expires on tomorrow, and the more active March contract was at $59.39, up 5 cents. Your financial indicators: one US dollar in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 418, and Botswana is 13 pula 22. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 43, and in Zambia it's 19 kwacha 89. The BRICS countries: $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 ril 37. Russia is 78 rubles 56. India is 90 rupees 25. China at 6 yuan 97. And in South Africa, $1 is trading at 16 rand 42. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $4,658 and platinum at $2,357 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $64.14 a barrel. Now, for any stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I'm Nusi Posoma.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine. Weekdays 6 till 9 Central African Time on Channel Africa.
The Arab Coordination Group, ACG, and the African Development Bank Group, AFDB, launched a new phase of their partnership aimed at scaling co-financing, mobilizing private capital, and accelerating Africa's economic transformation at a meeting held in Abidjan in Ivory Coast. The high-level consultation meeting convened at the AFDB's headquarters established a common platform to move from fragmented cooperation toward programmatic large-scale co-investment aligned with the continent's economic development priorities. Tuto Ngobeni compiled this report.
The high-level consultation meeting convened at the African Development Bank Group AFDB headquarters in Abidjan, Ivory Coast, takes place at a time when Africa faces a widening development financing gap and an urgent need to mobilize capital at scale for energy access, climate resilience, food security, regional integration, and private sector-led growth. It also reflects the collective ambition of the Arab Coordination Group ACG members to expand their engagement with Africa, deployed in a more coordinated and catalytic manner. The newly launched phase of their partnership aims at scaling co-financing, mobilizing private capital, and accelerating Africa's economic transformation. Dr. Sidi Ould-Attar, president of the African Development Bank, says the meeting is a historic moment.
What makes this moment truly historic is not only the jubilee we celebrate or the declaration we adopt, but the opportunity before us to transform 50 years of solidarity into a new era of scale, speed, and impact. To move from doing more to doing more together and doing it better.
He says the Arab Coordination Group and the African Development Bank Group declaration is a joint statement of shared intent and practical direction.
It marks a deliberate shift from cooperation to co-investment, from parallel efforts to coordinated impact, and from ad hoc transaction to programmatic engagement and strategic alignment.
Meanwhile, Abdullah Al Musabey, president of the African Bank for Economic Development in Africa, Beda, through an interpreter, says the newly launched partnership is an opportunity to bolster cooperation between Africa and the Arab world, which is based on trust and strategic alignment.
This is an important opportunity to bolster cooperation between Africa and the Arab world, which is based on trust, strategic alignment, as well as our commitment to sustainable development. The joint declaration that will be signed today will be a clear step in this framework and along this path of shared responsibility serving the development of Africa. My institution, in line with its 2020-2030 roadmap, is fully committed to working with the African Development Bank and supporting its pivotal role in development across Africa.
Furthermore, Fawzi Youssef Al-Nafi, Director General of the Arab Fund Economic and Social Development, through an interpreter, says this meeting is an opportunity to unleash a social and economic perspective at an unprecedented scale for Africa.
This is a meeting that it does not come within the context of a conventional coordination, but rather a translation of shared determination to work on developing strategic and more impactful change capable of unleashing the potential and translating it into impact from a social and economic perspective.
For Channel Africa News, I am Tutongo Bene in Johannesburg.
Right. You know me, my favorite thing to do is to tell you what happened on this day in history. And I'm going to take you back to 2017 because it was a historic moment for the country, the Gambia. In a high-stakes diplomatic and military standoff, Adama Barrow was sworn in as president of the Gambia at the Gambian embassy in Dakar in Senegal. Can you believe it? Now, the ceremony took place whilst the incumbent Yahya Jammeh refused to step down after losing the election. And this led to the ECOWAS military intervention that ultimately forced Jammeh into exile and secured a transition of power. Now, Jammeh himself, he was fairly controversial and some might say eccentric as well. He ruled Gambia for about 22 years after first seizing power in a military coup in 1994 and then winning an election in 96. Stayed in power, and among the many things that he claimed he could do, he said that he could cure AIDS with a herbal remedy. So people used to often go to the State House and receive medication from the president of Gambia. These are interesting times we've lived through, aren't they? Stay with us. Coming up, still so much more right here on Rise and Shine.
Darubini ya Afrika na I am Henry Shakif.
Dar es Salaam siku ya leo ni ya kijani.
Ya kabisa, Tanzania nzima macho ni hapa, na mkutano wa leo umeshika karibu 90% ya vyombo vyote vya habari viko hapa kusubiri kusikia ni kitu gani hasa ambacho CCM itakisema katika siku ya kwanza ya grand opening ya uzinduzi wa kampeni zake kitaifa.
Rais wa Tanzania Samia Suluhu Hassan ameidhinishwa kuwania kiti cha urais katika uchaguzi utakaofanyika Oktoba 29 mwaka huu na tume ya uchaguzi. Hili unalizungumzia vipi?
Ila kwanza lilitarajiwa, ni jambo liko wazi kwa sababu Rais Samia ndiye aliyepata idhini ya kuteuliwa na Chama cha Mapinduzi kupeperusha bendera ya chama.
Darubini ya Afrika 11 kamili hadi 12 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
60 years of Channel Africa, your trusted voice, your African perspective into the future.
A new labour market report from South Africa's PNet, one of the country's major online job platforms, suggests that competition for work is increasing, particularly for jobs that require lower levels of formal education and work experience. Sectors such as administration, manufacturing, logistics, sales and entry-level finance are seeing a growing number of applicants for a limited number of opportunities. At the same time, the report indicates that employers continue to struggle to fill specialized positions, especially in engineering, financial services, and information technology, where demand for skilled professionals is still exceeding the available talent. Diabo Situ reports.
According to the report, despite the high unemployment rate, there are job opportunities in a few industries. The findings highlight strong and ongoing hiring activity across 12 key job sectors. The analysis shows fierce competition for jobs with low barriers to entry in terms of experience and qualifications.
There are a number of jobs that are available to people that are entering the career market for their first time. In other words, people with basically no work experience and potentially not many skills if they've come straight out of matric. We typically see that those type of jobs are your call center operators and sales types roles. And I think it's important to mention those, and specifically the type of skill that the type of person that will go for those jobs has got is that passion for helping people, or that ability to convey a message or a sales message. And it's good to see that those particular jobs are actually out there. What we can also see is that there are a number of jobs that are the other jobs that are available to that type of person that's coming into the job market for the first time are your cashiers, your junior property agents, telesales jobs. And then within warehousing and logistics specifically, we've got dispatch and receiving jobs, as well as courier services.
On the other hand, Burns says demand for many specialist roles in engineering, finance and information technology appears set to continue outpacing the availability of skills for the foreseeable future.
And if I break that down into sort of the different job types within engineering, specifically your civil and structural engineers, it's your consulting engineers, your quantity surveyors that are in demand, and again, relatively little competition for those jobs. When it comes to business and management, it is your senior managers, your executive managers and director jobs. Clearly a lot of experience required for those jobs, but again, not that much competition. Finance is always an interesting one. Our accountants are always in demand.
Ruben Raligwa, a business development manager at Inspired, a recruitment firm with offices in Johannesburg, Cape Town and Kinshasa, confirms that jobs with lower barriers to entry are in high demand, with a strong activity in technical sales, call center roles, nursing and hospitality. Raligwa says demand for call center agents has spiked and employers are now spoiled for choice.
They really know what they want. Sometimes you get a person who's just looking for a job, but the clients or the employer knows that I'm looking for someone who's very passionate, who will be, if I hire this person, will make a career out of the role that I'm hiring, not someone who will just use this thing as a stepping stone. And after 2-3 months down the line, I'm still left with the same issue again where I need to replace. So it's a bit difficult, and sometimes when you go to some of the job portals, you get happy clickers, people who just apply. But when you go back and check the experience, it doesn't even it's not even aligned with what exactly the client is looking for, and sometimes even the personality, sometimes the CV might be good, but personality-wise, the person, he or she doesn't, culture fit-wise, he doesn't fit.
For recent matriculants, Raligwa suggests the insurance sector as a promising starting point, describing it as a huge market with many opportunities. He advises young people to look carefully at entry requirements in insurance, noting that there is room to build a career once those requirements are met. Diabo Sito, SABC News, Johannesburg.
A group of demonstrators on Friday gathered outside the United States consulate on Santon Drive in Johannesburg, South Africa, bringing together people from a wide range of backgrounds, including civic, student, academic, and faith-based organizations, trade unions, and political activists, to voice their opposition to recent U.S. foreign policy actions, which they described as acts of imperial aggression. The group was mobilizing in solidarity with the people of Venezuela and Palestine and was demanding the immediate release of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and First Lady Celia Flores, who organizers claimed had been illegally detained. Channel Africa's reporter Michael Mbewe filed this report.
In late 2025 and early 2026, the United States significantly escalated its foreign policy and military engagement in regions that have drawn both global support and widespread criticism. Most prominently, the U.S. government undertook a major military operation against Venezuela, involving strikes in and around Caracas, an expanded naval and military presence in the Caribbean, and the capture and detention of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and First Lady Celia Flores on federal charges. These actions followed intensified sanctions and an oil blockade aimed at restricting Venezuela's energy exports, which the Venezuelan government and many international actors condemned as violations of international law and national sovereignty. Speaking to Channel Africa, General Industries Workers Union of South Africa, Mametlo Sibei said they are in solidarity with Venezuelan people accusing the U.S. for imposing imperialism.
We are here in solidarity with the people of Venezuela who have been under attack of the most belligerent, U.S. imperialism in its aggression against the people of that country, in the cost to get control over their oil, over their gold, over their resources, but also for geopolitical reasons, because it is clear that they want to reassert their hegemony, over the Western Hemisphere, over the Americas, and they're using the language we haven't had in over 150 years. The fact that you could have an American president invoking a Monroe doctrine, a colonial imperialist doctrine that says basically Americas belong to, Americas belong to the USA, is their backyard, and they can do as they like. That is a mark of the period that we are in.
Sibei emphasized opposition to U.S. imperialism, warning that U.S. actions extend beyond Venezuela to threaten other left-led countries, while calling for respect for national sovereignty, the release of Nicolas Maduro and Celia Flores, and an end to the blockade, and the recognition that Venezuela's natural resources belong to its people.
And obviously it's not just Venezuela, they're threatening Cuba, they're threatening Colombia and all other countries where the people of those countries have of course voted left governments in an attempt to try to reassert their national sovereignty and at least get redistribution of some wealth that is being plundered by Americans and other imperialist forces. Now, we say hands off Venezuela, release Nicolas Maduro, release Flores, and we are saying that end the blockade. We are saying that the oil, the gold, and all the resources of Venezuela belong to the people of Venezuela.
Ben Kotze, a South African protester, said he joined the demonstration in solidarity with the Venezuelan people and in opposition to what he described as long-standing U.S. imperial practices, including sanctions, coups, and military interventions driven by economic interests. He argued that current U.S. actions are more openly aggressive than in the past and called for organized international pressure to compel governments to take concrete action against such interventions.
I'm here today to show my solidarity with the Venezuelan people and with the movement against American imperialism in general. I don't think this is a color-blind or a color-related issue. It's something that threatens the entire globe. We're all living in a world where the United States can, based on their own economic interests, at any moment decide to intervene in your country, whether that's through illegal sanctions, illegal interventions, coups. This is a modus operandi that the US has employed for the last several decades. What is different in this point in time is just how brazen they are, how willing to tell us the truth about their motivations they are. And what I'm hoping to achieve by being out here today is to show people that the only way that we can resist this is by organizing and doing whatever we can to show the United States that we will not stand for it, to mobilize people, to put pressure on our government to take real material action to show the US that this will no longer be tolerated.
A former Al Jazeera journalist identified only as male for security reasons told Channel Africa that US and Israel actions in Palestine and the wider Middle East have caused severe humanitarian harm and regional instability. Drawing on her experience reporting from Gaza and the West Bank, she said restrictions on journalists and continued military operations undermine claims of human rights and are contributing to broader destabilization in both the Middle East and South America.
Well, I am a journalist and I've spent many years in the West Bank and in Gaza. I've traveled to Gaza hundreds of times. I've seen what's happening to people there, and I haven't been able to go there for a while because Israel's blocking all journalists from getting in unless they go on a special embedded tour. And just the horrific what America with Israel are doing in the Middle East, especially in Palestine and in the Middle East in general, and the way they're going ahead now, they're further destabilizing the Middle East. They're destabilizing South America. It's got nothing to do with human rights. That's basically it.
Michael Mbewe, Channel Africa News, Johannesburg.
Right, let's get our news with Jwalane Tulongwepe, and then we'll tell you what's coming up on this next hour of Rise and Shine. This is Channel Africa. Good morning if you've just joined us.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. The flood-related death toll in South Africa's Mpumalanga and Limpopo provinces currently stands at 37. In Mpumalanga, 20 people have died and 17 have died in Limpopo. Incidents of drowning continue to emerge from Phalaborwa, Giyani and Thohoyandou areas of Limpopo. Heavy rains have battered various parts of the province, damaging homes, roads and bridges. Limpopo Disaster Management Centre spokesperson Zakani Baloyi says the province has, however, welcomed the classification of a national disaster in flood-stricken provinces.
MEC Biskop Makamo has expressed his sadness on the rising of the number of fatalities since the beginning of the severe weather condition that has mainly affected Mopani, Vembe, Waterberg and some parts of Sekhukhune districts in Limpopo province. The MEC has sent deepest condolences to the families of 17 people who perished in this severe weather and the affected communities.
Meanwhile, South Africa's Department of International Relations says it has sent SANDF helicopters to help look for the missing Ekurhuleni MMC Andile Mgwevu, who has gone missing in Mozambique. Mgwevu and other 3 people went missing in Chokwe in Mozambique after their vehicle was swept away by floods. One occupant of the vehicle has been found safe and is in contact with South African rescue teams who are working alongside Mozambican authorities. DIRCO spokesperson Clayson Munyela.
The mission has also made contact with the only person that managed to get out of the vehicle at the time of the incident. It was established that there were 5 people in the vehicle. The status of the other 4, and this includes the MMC, is yet to be confirmed. We've also been told that the South African National Defence Force will send 2 Oryx helicopters to Mozambique to assist with search and rescue operations.
The internet monitoring group NetBlocks says Uganda has deployed social media filtering measures in the aftermath of Thursday's contentious presidential elections, whose results have been dismissed by the opposition. The watchdog says while internet access has largely been restored in Uganda, some content may still be restricted because of the filters. Some connectivity was restored hours after the country's leader of 40 years, Yoweri Museveni, was announced as the election winner. More people have died of cholera in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo amid a shortage of medical supplies to curb the spread of the bacterial disease. Authorities say 182 people recently contracted the disease in the city of Uvira in the conflict-torn province of South Kivu. SABC correspondent Chris Ochamringa.
The cholera cases have been reported in the Ruzizi plain of Uvira in eastern Congo. Health officials say more than 180 people have been infected in recent weeks, but Their teams face a medicine shortage, raising fears that the disease will spread further. The DRC declared a cholera outbreak in May last year after cases rapidly increased in areas affected by floods and conflict. The United Nations described the outbreak as the worst in 25 years, after more than 64,000 people were infected and 1,800 others died.
At least 21 people have died and dozens more have been injured after two high-speed trains collided in southern Spain. The incident occurred when a train travelling from Malaga to Madrid derailed near Adamuz in Andalusia, crossing onto the other track where it hit an oncoming train. The BBC's Barry Caffrey has the story.
Now, we have actually heard from Pedro Sanchez, Spain's Prime Minister, who said the government was working with the emergency services. He said that tonight is a night of deep pain for Spain due to the tragic railway accident at Adamuz. He said he wanted to express his most sincere condolences to the families, friends and loved ones of the victims. And he said, no words can alleviate such immense suffering, but I want them to know that the entire country stands with them in this extremely difficult moment.
For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Cholani Tulo Mwepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In our sports headline, Springbok Women's Sevens go undefeated to claim inaugural Sevens 3 crown in Dubai. And Senegal have been crowned AFCON champions after extra time drama. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
Start your day informed, inspired, and entertained. Asanda and Peter bring you Rise and Shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Wherever the hour finds you, across the world, here's your morning African lens on the world's leading story. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
A very good morning to you and welcome to the second hour of Rise and Shine here on Channel Africa, where we bring you the African perspective. And coming up this hour, by the way, my name is Peter Ndoro and we're driving this show together with Asanda Beda. Very good morning, Asanda.
Good morning, and we enter the third, no, it's the second hour. Yes, let me not fast forward. I know I'm getting excited. It's a new day, it's a new week. We've got lots to look forward for or to. But of course, one of the major things we're talking about is Uganda. Yes. My name is Asanda Beda, of course. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for continuing with us. Or if you've just joined us, thanks for doing just that.
And we're streaming live on channelafrica.co.za, and also you can find us on our social media platforms. Just type in Channel Africa, and don't forget, you can also get us on your mobile app. Just go into your app store, look for SABC Plus, that's SABC Plus, and you can basically listen to us wherever you go. Okay, so coming up this hour, as you've heard from Asanda, we'll be doing a deep dive into those elections. I have one question. How did Yoweri Museveni go from 58% at the last election all the way up to 71% in this election? And this after he said 8 million people didn't even bother to show up. We find out this hour.
And also, Davos in Switzerland is busy as they launch today, on this Monday, the 56th annual meeting of the World Economic Forum. And that's under the theme, A Spirit of Dialogue, as leaders from different segments, government, business, civil society, science and culture are going to be gathering there to tackle some of the world's most pressing issues. Those stories and more, of course, coming up on Rise and Shine.
Parlez-vous couramment le français? Êtes-vous passionné par la radio? Et êtes-vous qualifié pour travailler en Afrique du Sud? Envoyez-nous votre CV et votre 3 minutes démo en MP3 à @channelafrica.co.za pour avoir une chance de rejoindre la famille Channel Africa. Si vous n'avez pas de réponse après 14 jours, cela signifie que vous n'avez pas été retenu. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Let's just do it.
Your life just got easier. Get the Channel Africa app and take us wherever you go. Catch the latest news, enjoy your favorite shows, stream the music you love, and stay connected to the continent. All in one spot, right in your pocket. Simple, quick, and always with you. The Channel Africa app. Download it now on iOS and Android. Start your day right with Channel Africa Breakfast.
That smells delicious.
Live, 5 days a week.
Uganda's Electoral Commission has declared President Yoweri Museveni the winner of a seventh term, extending his nearly 4-decade rule. His main challenger, pop star turned politician Bobi Wine, has rejected the results, alleging widespread fraud. Protests have broken out in parts of Kampala, and internet services are now only being partially restored, with social media still blocked. More on the situation on the ground, we're joined by Channel Africa's Kampala-based reporter Mike Arereng. Mike, good morning. How are you this morning?
Very good morning to you, Asanda, and your colleague, Peter Ndoro of the mighty Channel Africa.
So please set the scene for us in terms of what you're seeing happening in Kampala. How are Ugandans responding to this win by Museveni?
Well, there's mixed reaction. Some people are supporting President Yoweri Museveni, while others are not supporting the results which were announced by the chairman of the Electoral Commission, Justin Byamukama. Finally, the results for the presidential and parliamentary elections in Uganda have been announced officially by the chairman of the Electoral Commission, Justin Byamukama, the incumbent President Yoweri Museveni, who will, on 26 January 2026, will be marking 40 years since he came to power, won again with 7,946,000 votes against Robert Chagulanyi of the National Unity Platform, who only got 2,741,000 votes. It was a big gap between the two contestants. President Yoweri Museveni won greatly in all the 155 districts, and also aspiring members of parliament from the ruling party won quite impressively in most of the districts here in Uganda. Total seats in parliament for the National Unity Platform secured only 48 parliamentary seats, while Uganda People's Congress Party secured only 10. Forum for Democratic Party got only 10 seats. President Museveni, who first took power in January 1986, has ruled Uganda for nearly 40 years, making him one of Africa's longest-serving leaders. Other than that, he has actually repeatedly won elections that opposition parties and international observers have criticized for irregularities, intimidation, and the misuse of state security forces.
So as you've given us that breakdown of the final results, the percentages and seats that the candidates received, what does that tell us about voter support across the country?
Well, most of the elderly people and most of the middle-aged people voted for President Yoweri Museveni. And remember, in 2021, most of the Ugandans, especially in the Buganda region, they did support Bobi Wine. But there has been a very big change, especially during the rallies. President Yoweri Museveni went twice, visited twice some districts just to try to appeal to the people to vote for the ruling party. And actually he succeeded in doing that. But in some places like Kampala district, there was also that fear because of the security which was built up there was too much, so there were so many soldiers who actually were deployed in Kampala city, and this made most of the people to have that fear of going to cast their votes in the polling stations.
The President Museveni, during his acceptance speech, or no, let me rather say his celebratory speech to his supporters, mentioned that around 10 million voters did not show up. Is that same reason that you've given us what could have led to those 10 million people not coming out to vote?
Yeah, it's because that one attributed actually a lot because, as I said, most of the people decided to remain indoors. Because even in my home village, there were gunshots. I remember after casting my vote, when time came when time came for the results of the vote counting, there was a scuffle between one of the deputy ministers, Diana, and one of the candidates from the opposition party. And actually the opposition had won, but later on there were gunshots, and this made the people run away, including myself. And later on we were made to understand that the candidate from the ruling party is the one who was declared the winner. So this kind of conflicts which had happened in so many polling stations actually caused a rift. And I can say that about 10 people have lost their lives in some parts of the country. And 300 people have been arrested so far.
Internet access as well. The internet services are partially back. They were completely shut down last week, but social media is still blocked. So how is that affecting communication?
Well, it is still affecting the people, and more especially, you couldn't actually do money transaction using the mobile phone. But right now, as I speak, it's only Facebook, and in fact, even Facebook is not back. It is still not working, and I can say that it's only other platform which are working. But apparently, TikTok, it's only WhatsApp which is working, but TikTok so far is not working. And most of Ugandans prefer using the TikTok in order to send information from one part of the country to another. So at this particular moment, it is still tense, and even business is back to normal. But the internet is affecting most of the people here in Uganda because it is actually very slow, and going through the internet is actually a problem.
Opposition leader Bobby Wine, his whereabouts remain unclear. He issued a video statement saying that he narrowly escaped security forces and had to flee his home. Do you know where he is?
Until now, we don't know where he is, but according to some information we got, is that there was a chopper which came to his residence outside Kampala city, and that he was actually forced to board the chopper. And up to now, the whereabouts of Bobby Wine is not yet known. But the last word he said that people should come out to the streets and demand proper results, because they say that the results which were announced by the chairman of the Electoral Commission were not real. They were fake news. So he said that was the last statement we had from him. But up to now, we don't know his whereabouts.
So then, as we look ahead, what do people expect to happen from now on? As you say, the opposition party side of things are calling for their supporters to take to the streets. So do we expect more demonstrations? And also on the legal challenge side, what could be done there?
Anything can happen between now and later on. But as I said, the situation now is not back to normal, though they still fear the ruling party National Resistance Movement has lined up more than 40 lawyers to defend President Museveni's victory during his campaign rallies. Robert Chagulanyi appealed to Ugandans to go to the streets in case President Museveni steals their votes. But we don't know whether Chagulanyi will go to the courts and open up a case against President Museveni. We're still waiting for that. But elections are still going on. Elections for the local government are still going on this week until 4th of February. So we are still expecting more violence, especially from supporters of the opposition, because they are also contesting in some of the elections, like mayor, chairman of local council, and so many other positions which needs to be filled. So we are still in campaign period, and we are yet to witness more and more scuffles between supporters of the ruling party and the supporters of the opposition. But the situation is now calm, and it's actually the game is over, and the people have returned back to their business, and business is back to normal.
All right, Mike, thank you so much for this update. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Our pleasure. Mike Arering is our reporter in Kampala, Uganda, giving us the latest in terms of what's happening with results from the elections that took place in that country last week, Thursday.
Africa Update on Channel Africa with Lulu Kabu.
Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi has now accused Rwanda of violating the peace deal. Are you surprised at this latest accusation? This is literally days after a signing, a ceremony, so to speak.
This is not surprising. I mean, if you ask Paul Kagame, he would also say almost the same thing. One should ask a question. The broker of the peace deal, President Trump, what is it that he wants? Why now? And why is this peace deal being signed in the Americas and not in the Great Lakes? Paul Kagame has never respected Tshisekedi, as often say. Tshisekedi must deal with the problems in his country. He has nothing to do with it. So this peace deal, obviously, when it was signed, one just looked at it and said, this will not last.
Kenny Matiba, former journalist.
Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time. Conversations are happening, and Channel Africa is at the heart of them. We tell the African story with clarity, pride, and purpose, reaching audiences that matter to your brand. Partner with us and connect your business with listeners across borders in multiple languages and markets. For partnership opportunities, sponsorship, or sales, email us at partnership@channelafrica.co.za. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Be inspired. Stay informed. Channel Africa, the beauty of life. Now available anytime, anywhere with our new app.
A few minutes ago, you heard from our reporter on the ground in Kampala, giving us a sense of how Ugandans are reacting as President Yoweri Museveni is confirmed as the winner of a seventh term amid protest, internet restrictions, and opposition rejecting the results. Now we turn to a bigger political picture. What does this moment mean for Uganda's democracy, its regional role, and the future leadership? Well, to help us unpack, we are joined now by Ugandan journalist and political analyst Timothy Kalyagira. Timothy, welcome to Channel Africa and welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you.
All right, Timothy, let's begin with how significant has this election been? He's been president 6 times before. This is the 7th term that he's just won. But given what's happening in the region, given how visible everything is now because of social media and the such, how significant has this election been?
Well, it's still significant for, I guess, for how blatantly the rigging was done. That's the way I would summarize it.
Hello, Timothy, can you hear me?
I hear you loud and clear, and I just said that the significance of it is, I guess, a reminder of the extent to which the state will go to lead a general election in favor of the incumbent. That's the significance of it.
So, I mean, I guess some of the things that people are talking about has been the internet shutdown, heavy security presence. Do you think that, with all of these considered, that it was significant enough to alter the result? What happened to the opposition, the internet shutdown, security, that kind of thing, was that enough to alter the result? And I'm curious also how he managed to jump from 58% in the last election all the way up to 71%, yet when you look in the decades before, there's been a steady decline.
Well, thank you for stating the obvious, and thank you for using the word curious. That's exactly what you think people in Uganda are asking. You know, the pattern in life is typically over time, especially over 30 years, you used to graduate to the natural human law of diminishing returns. You might start at 90 and gradually go to 85, then to 60. You know, it's very, I mean, inconceivable to imagine that somebody who's been steadily reducing suddenly from no position up to a super landslide of 71%. That's the answer.
So, President Museveni said that as many as 8 million people didn't show up. How do we interpret this stay away?
But the question should be asking, and this is what makes me realize the world of difference between social media and traditional media. Traditional media goes typically by, official statements, government press releases. If a government says the GDP grew by 6.4%, that's what traditional media goes with. Social media, on the other hand, questions related to it. So I'm looking at all this world media that's taking the officially declared result of face value, and I'm thinking, my goodness, no wonder we shut off social media. Because had social media been on the election, would have given all these kinds of, falsified results, police and army brutality and polling stations, intimidation, then we would know the facts. But now, because we're doing social media, you're trying to Africa side, you then have to take them. So that's what I'm saying. The question is, were we given the actual results? That's the question. It's a bit like you saying, like an AI generated of, let's say Nairobi. And then you start analyzing and say, what does it show about Nairobi's development trajectory and in 5 years, what will Nairobi be like? But it is an AI-generated video. Is that video even authentic?
I suppose big questions are going to be asked now in terms of succession. The son has been positioning himself. Might we see another Gabon?
Well, long story, that is the original script about 10, 15 years ago. And there's so much that's been going on. It's too complicated and too difficult for me to explain in a few minutes. But it's not an obvious Gabon, because even within the presidential palace, even within the first family, there are risks about who succeeds. So it's not an obvious Omar Bongo, it's not an obvious Bema succession story. That's what it is. And that's why, there's a faction that is within the ruling NRM called that is loyal to the son. And, it's half affiliated to the ruling governing party, but also half independent. So there's a whole complicated story. But to answer your question, it won't be an obvious Omar Bongo or Bema.
What happens now, do you think, in terms of, we're seeing some protest? Are we going to get to Tanzania levels, or Tanzania was a good warning for Museveni on how to manage post-election outcomes?
That's very difficult to see, because if you know Tanzania for what it is, it's passive, mild country, and it's really never makes the news, and has had one government since One, out of the blue, these Maoris, Swahili-speaking people called Tanzanians erupt in that violence. So if this country that, whose culture is, low-key, never facing, erupts in that kind of violence, how about Uganda, whose youth population is nearer 10 years than Tanzania? So we don't yet know when the spark might come, if it will come, but that's exactly why the internet is shut down, why mobile money transactions are still suspended right now, and why the streets of the country are being portrayed like we're just in a war.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. Timothy, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Your insights and your thoughts, greatly appreciated. Thanks so much indeed for your time.
Thank you, Peter.
That was respected Ugandan journalist and political analyst Timothy Kalyegira giving us his thoughts on the outcome of this election. And earlier on I think I said that 8 million voters didn't show up. Actually, the figure is 10 million. 21 million voters were registered to vote. 11 million turnout voted, so that's approximately 52% of the votes people showed up. So we're not sure what that means, actually. We'll continue to unpack this at 8 o'clock because it is a significant event. Right now, though, it is 7:30, which means it's time for your news headlines as we say good morning once again to Jwalani Tulo Ongwepe.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. Making headlines, the flood-related death toll in South Africa's Mpumalanga and Limpopo provinces currently stands at 37. The internet monitoring group NetBlock says Uganda has deployed social media filtering measures in the aftermath of Thursday's contentious presidential elections, whose results have been dismissed by the opposition. And finally, the Guatemalan president, Bernardo Arevalo, has declared a 30-day state of emergency in response to the murder of 8 police officers by suspected criminal gangs. I will have details on these and other stories at 8 o'clock.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Let's now check in with the world of sports. We say good morning again to Fikile Lingwati for that update.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Good morning, Asanda. We start off with rugby news this hour. The Springbok Women's Sevens claimed their inaugural HSBC Sevens title in Dubai with a 12-5 victory over Argentina. The South Africans finished the weekend unbeaten, winning all 5 matches at the Sevens Stadium. Zintle Mpupa's late try leveled the scores before Patience Mugoni crossed with a minute to play. Nadine Roos added the conversion to seal the win. Earlier, the Bog women beat Poland in the semi-finals to secure qualification for the HSBC Sevens 2 series, which continues in Nairobi, Montevideo, and Sao Paulo. On to football news, Senegal have been crowned 2025 Africa Cup of Nations champions with a dramatic 1-0 win over Morocco at the Prince Moulay Abdallah Stadium in Rabat on Sunday evening. An extra-time goal from Pape Gueye was enough to secure the win for the Teranga Lions as Morocco starman Brahim Diaz missed a penalty with virtually the last kick in regulation time. Walid Regragui's Chargers were aiming for their second AFCON title since their maiden win in 1976, but it was Pape Thiaw's team who rewrote the script to seal their second AFCON crown after winning the competition in 2023. Morocco will feel crestfallen after coming so close to winning in front of their home fans, and you have to have sympathy for Diaz. But Senegal will point to their disallowed goal and fantastic strike from Gueye to prove they were deserved winners of the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations title. On to motor racing, Qatar's Nasser Al Attiyah won the Dakar Rally for the 6th time in the car category on Saturday as Argentina's Luciano Benavides won by 2 seconds on 2 wheels, the narrowest margin ever. Al Attiyah with Belgian co-driver Fabien Leclerc had led overnight after taking his 50th career stage win and made no mistakes as he handed Dacia a first victory at their second attempt in 2-week event held entirely in Saudi Arabia. Al Attiyah is excited to win.
It's not easy because it's 13 days, in the desert, and I'm really so happy.
Benavides had earlier taken the motorcycle title after American Ricky Brabich lost his way and saw victory slip through his fingers, and the Argentine was in disbelief.
It's unreal. I cannot believe it. I never stopped dreaming. Today I wake up with full of energy, full of motivation, thinking just on myself, on what I can do, and try to trust on me. That was the key for the success this Dakar, and I did it for myself. This is unreal, and to win by just 2 seconds is unreal. I missed the last 2 corners. I almost died out there, but it paid off. I cannot describe this moment. It's unreal.
And finally, third seed Mira Andreeva beat Victoria Mboko of Canada in straight sets in all-teenager Adelaide final to win the first title of the year in Australia. This was her 5th WTA Tour title achieved in her 6th career final, her first at WTA 500 level. Meanwhile, in men's final, 8th seed Thomas Marchak defeated Ugo Humbe 6-4, 6-7 and 6-2 to claim the men's singles title in Adelaide. It's the Czech second tour level title, and he denied the Frenchman his 8th title in 11th final. It took Marchak 2 hours, 25 minutes and 3 sets to overcome the unseeded Frenchman. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Figile Lungwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Okay, so 7:35 Central African time, and coming up we're going to be looking at the business news, but don't forget at 8 o'clock we're going to look again at what's been happening in Uganda. We're hearing reports of sporadic protests as voters say, look, we did not vote for you, Mr. President. Mr. President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni says, actually you did. 71% of you said that I'm the guy. So we'll be unpacking that. What does that result mean? And Bobby Wine, Robert Chagulani is in hiding. Will he suffer the same fate as Kizza Besigye, who for 5 elections in a row faced off against Mr. President Yoweri Museveni? But this election, he couldn't. He's in jail, and he's been in jail for some time now. So what's the fate of Robert Chagulani if he gets caught by the authorities?
Crossing our fingers that, of course, as you know, internet was shut down completely last week, but it's returned now sporadically. And our telephonic lines might be a challenge in terms of audibility. We're hoping that those chats will be able to hear our guests nicely. So do bear with us if the telephonic lines aren't as clear as they normally are.
Annie Kalonji sur Channel Africa.
Comment est-ce que les militants et sympathisants du parti Les Transformateurs ont-ils réagi face à la condamnation de Succès Masra?
La condamnation de Succès Masra ne nous a pas surpris et les militants transformateurs ont été bouleversés et indignés étant donné que le verdict est un verdict lourd, illégal, injuste et donc face à la répression dans laquelle le peuple tchadien est confronté, les militants transformateurs se sont résignés de ne pouvoir pas sortir manifester. Et donc, c'est une situation totalement absurde pour un pays. Et aujourd'hui, nous célébrons le 11 août, fête de l'indépendance. On pensait que le verdict allait être plus ou moins clément, mais le verdict est sévère.
Annie Kalonji, tous les dimanches sur Mix Vibration.
Hi there. Do you want to elevate your business and give it a voice in South Africa and Africa as a whole? Well, in that case, let Channel Africa make this a possibility. Channel Africa is willing to advertise your business for as little as 30,000 rands or $1,719.18. To get access to these great rates, send all requests to mukwenata@sabc. That's MOKOENATA@SABC. Channel Africa, the African perspective. As Africa renews, so does its voices. 60 years of Channel Africa.
Yep, Channel Africa, always bringing you the African perspective. It's time now on Rise and Shine to catch you up with what's been happening on the business front. And at the desk this morning, we say good morning to Nosipo Zuma.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. In your business news this hour, Libya's central bank has announced a 14.7% devaluation of the dinar. The move sets the exchange rate at 6.3759 dinar to the US dollar, a currency's second such adjustment in less than a year, citing the nation's political and economic turmoil. The move follows a 13.3% devaluation in April 2025, which has set the exchange rate at 5.5677 dinars to the US dollar. Libya has signed a strategic partnership with international firms to expand and develop the Misurata Free Zone, which is MFZ, that has attracted an estimated $2.7 billion in investment. Now, this is according to the Prime Minister, Abdulhamid Beda. Beda says the agreement will help the project generate operating revenues estimated at around 500 million annually. The Misurata Free Zone signed the agreement with port operator Terminal Investment Limited, which is expected to help MFZ's port become a competitive logistics hub between Africa, Europe and the Middle East. The executive board of the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, has completed the latest review of Ethiopia's current financial program. The move will lead to the disbursement of around $261 million to the government. Ethiopia secured its $3.4 billion lending program with the IMF in 2024 as part of a far-reaching economic reforms package that also includes an overhaul of its external debt. Staff of the fund and the government reached a deal on the review, the fourth under the program, last month. 8 European countries have warned that U.S. tariff threats over control of Greenland threatened transatlantic relations and risk a dangerous downward spiral. The latest response from the key NATO countries, including U.S. allies France, Germany and the United Kingdom, among others, comes after U.S. President Donald Trump threatened additional tariffs on countries that had sent small contingents of troops to Greenland for military exercises amid concerns about the region's security. Showing Bryce Peace reports that Greenland is a self-governing territory of the Kingdom of Denmark.
The joint statement by Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, the Netherlands, Norway, Sweden and the United Kingdom also said that the pre-coordinated Danish military exercises conducted with allies responded to a commitment to strengthen Arctic security and pose no threat to anyone. Trump threatened an additional 10% tariff on the 8 countries, increasing to 25% on June 1st until the US was able to purchase Greenland.
And finally, oil prices are up slightly today after the previous session's rise, narrowing chances for a U.S. attack on the major Middle Eastern producer that could disrupt supplies. Brent crude is trading at $64.19 a barrel, up 6 cents. U.S. West Texas Intermediate for February rose 9 cents to $59.53 a barrel. Now that contract expires tomorrow. On the more active March contract was at $59.39, up 5 cents. Your financial indicators: one US dollar in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 418, and Botswana is 13 bula 22. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 43, and in Zambia it's 19 kwacha 89. The BRICS countries: $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 real 37. Russia is 78 rubles 56. India is 90 rupees 25. China it's 6 yuan 97, and in South Africa $1 is trading at 16 rand 42. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $4,658 and platinum at $2,357 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $64.14 a barrel. Now, for any stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I'm Nosipho Soma.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. From Cape to Cairo, Dakar to Dar es Salaam. Rise and shine with Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda on Channel Africa.
So, the Trump administration, what are we doing?
USA Federal.
Okay. The Trump administration unprecedented decision to open a criminal investigation into the head of the U.S. Federal Reserve has triggered alarm across global financial markets and political circles. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell has condemned the move as politically motivated. Analysts warn that the case could undermine independence of the central bank and shake confidence in the world's largest economy. So why is this case raising such serious concern around the world? Channel Africa's economics reporter Innocent Samosa finds out.
The U.S. Fed Chair criminal probe is causing global alarm. Loazi Somia, senior researcher, Southern Africa Liaison Office, shares his views on why the independence of the U.S. Federal Reserve is important beyond America's borders, particularly for global political and economic stability.
The US dollar, being the reserve currency for many countries throughout the international community, including here within the African continent, is a very critical currency that ensures stability within the international financial system. Second aspect of it is that a lot of countries' debts are based on the US dollar. Thus, fluctuations of the US dollars creates a lot of instability, especially in relation to country debts. Therefore, it has a lot of impact in how countries manage their fiscal positioning going forward, and how do we now ensure that the international system, especially the international financial system, is stable.
But how could a criminal probe into the Fed chair affect U.S. credibility, diplomatic relations, and trust in international institutions?
The credibility of the United States as a diplomatic actor itself has been knocked by the actions of President Donald Trump, from attempted takeover of Greenland to the kidnapping of President Maduro in Venezuela, to the bolstering of Israel and its genocide in Gaza, to even how he has even managed the Russia-Ukraine efforts, along with his other, and also with the tariff war he is initiating against the international community. All those aspects have compounded in the lessening of American soft power within the international system, and therefore reducing America's ability to operate as a diplomatic actor within going forward. Even after the Donald Trump administration, a lot of reputational damage on the diplomatic front itself will have to be undertaken by whoever comes after President Trump.
And what could happen if President Trump moves to install a new Federal Reserve chair? Kevin Tutani is a political economist.
What could happen is the economy itself might overheat, inflation might begin to resurge. That's number one. And with that, house prices in real estate might also begin to go higher and higher, perhaps than they should. So what I understand is that after some time, if these interest rates are tuned lower, there might be a real estate bubble within the United States where housing prices or house prices become so expensive that, if, interest rates now have to be tuned up to control inflation within the US economy, there will be a few takers for house purchases, for buying new houses. And if that happens, there could be a real estate bubble within the USA, volatility of the real estate market, where house prices would now need to match the demand to go lower. And if that happens, we could have problems, exactly as what we saw around 2009, what triggered the global financial crisis.
For Channel Africa News, I'm Innocent Samosa in Johannesburg, South Africa.
So, the 56th annual meeting of the World Economic Forum officially opens today in Davos in Switzerland. We'll be talking about that in just a bit, so stay tuned for that update in terms of what one can expect in the world's most pressing challenges being discussed by those leaders meeting there. Still to come on Rise and Shine.
Morning Switch Weekend with the Shy Guy.
The story that takes us to Zambia. There are two men actually that were sentenced to prison for the plot to kill the president with witchcraft. You go like, what? So these guys were arrested actually in Lusaka. And what was found on them was a live chameleon. Can you believe that? Animal tails and bottles of concoction. That law takes us back to 1914, which is the Witchcraft Act. I can imagine now arrested and they go to jail for the next 2 years. You know, I presume that when you get to jail, they get to ask you actually, what is it that you committed? Now, this is the first of its kind, by the way, for somebody to be arrested for such. They remember whenever they pass. Hey, Chikanga! Hey, Uloya! Hey, Mulosi! And imagine here I am in these early hours of the mornings, I get to talk about witchcraft.
Saturday and Sunday mornings belong to the Morning Switch. 3 to 6 a.m. Central African Time. Channel Africa is moving with the times, and so is our WhatsApp line. We've changed our WhatsApp number, making it even easier for you to stay connected. Send us your voice notes, comments, shout outs, and song requests to our new WhatsApp number, +27 83 288 6684. That's +27 83 288 6684. Save it, share it, and stay in the conversation. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802.
The 56th annual meeting of the World Economic Forum officially opens today in Davos, Switzerland, under the theme, A Spirit of Dialogue. Leaders from government, business, civil society, science and culture will gather to tackle some of the world's most pressing challenges, from climate change and energy security to technological innovation and economic inequality. Joining us this morning, ahead of the official start, is Dr. Dale McKinley, who is a political economist, to give us insight into what to expect, including Africa's role in the discussions. Dr. McKinley, thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, Asanda. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. The World Economic Forum in Davos is often seen as a gathering of global elites. In a world that's facing a number of things, including rising inequality, technological disruption, and geopolitical tension, why does this kind of meeting still matter, particularly for Africa?
Well, it matters because it's gathering the world's leaders, and particularly the world's biggest economies. And on top of that, I think probably about the majority of the top corporations in the world. So basically, the people who run the world economy, people who control a lot of the trade, and who we have relationships with, both in Europe and the United States in particular, but also Asia, are going to be there. So I think that's what makes it important. Now, the gathering versus actually what happens at the World Economic Forum are two different stories, and particularly this year because of obviously the presence of Donald Trump and his very powerful United States delegation, which is coming in on the back of, of course, you have to find it quite ironic that the overall theme is about dialogue, and yet we started off the year with an invasion of a country and the kidnapping of a sovereign country's leader to go back to the United States, and of course, indications that the United States wants to take over Greenland and all sorts of other things. So it's taking place within a context unusually where the kinds of dialogues and the kinds of conversations that are going to be happening, I think, are going to be a bit different than in past years.
Well, as Africa participates at Davos, is the continent really shaping part of the agenda, or will we just be responding to what's already been placed in front of us and priorities that are already set?
It's going to be a little bit of both. I think we are Africa, and this is obviously, you saw it from the G20 process last year, is trying to get its seat on the table. and to have a bit more of a role in the conversation about setting the global trade agenda, sort of equalizing relationships and so forth. In that case, we're not in the driver's seat. We're trying to get as being part of the driver's seat. But where Africa does have some cachet, has some power behind it, is the fact that two different things. One is that South Africa, I mean, not just South Africa, but Africa itself is amongst some of the fastest growing areas in the world. In other words, our continent is projected, particularly East and West Africa, to have economic growth that is quite outpacing many other places in the world. This provides economic opportunities for our continent. And I think that places Africa in a fairly decent situation to have those kinds of conversations about new economic possibilities. The second one is the fact that our continent is the repository of a great deal of natural resources, and particularly rare earth minerals and other kinds of resources that are needed for the new AI technological revolution and the driving of the the going off the fossil fuel grid. So in that context, we are fairly well strategically placed, at least in that, having those kinds of resources to play a more meaningful role in setting some of the terms of that trade agenda or getting better terms.
How can African countries play that role? As you mentioned, AI and the next generation energy systems are on the agenda. As a continent, how do we leverage these technologies, and what challenges do we face in catching up where we need to?
Well, the challenges that we face are the fact that most of the countries on our continent are fairly heavily in debt. We are also very heavily behind in infrastructural development, in providing the necessary frameworks and the foundations for taking off and surely taking advantage of this gap that is sort of here, or the space that is here. And also for the human capital that is necessary, and the money capital that is necessary to drive this kind of growth is also generally lacking in most of our continent. So our challenge is to access that, is to be able to change also the domestic situations in many countries. There's too many conflicts, there's too much instability, political instability. There's still, we've just seen, for example, a couple of the elections on our continent, which have been very controversial and do not provide, if you're an investor or if you're someone who's thinking of looking at a country, that's what you're looking for. So in that context, I think those would be our key challenges. What can Africa do in the context? Well, it can be much more unified. The worst thing that Africa can do is to come as individual countries and try to negotiate individual deals or sort of treat it as if they're on their own. We need to act as a bloc. Economic blocks, we already have those blocks on our continent, the East African bloc, the West African one, the Southern African one, but they tend to be a bit weak when it comes to negotiating the terms of new trade deals and new kinds of growth opportunities. So it's about unifying that, having a common message, and about leveraging our advantages, which require political will and a particular economic plan, which sometimes are weak because our political classes are too often more interested in accumulating for themselves than they are in pursuing the national interest.
South Africa is part of Davos every year. So what should the country be aiming to achieve, especially on the point you make previously about regional integration and a grouping of outlooks for Africa?
Sure. I think South Africa, we can position ourselves as, obviously we are one of the most sophisticated economies on the continent, the largest economy on the continent, minus maybe Nigeria and Egypt. And so we can position ourselves as a regional, driver of these kinds of things, as somewhere where you can base yourself. And this has always been sort of the role, or at least the purported role of South Africa. But I think now, look, the South African delegation is going to be touting some of the gains, or some of the improvements, should we say, that they are going to say have taken place in our country over the last 2 or 3 years, particularly with regards to the financial architecture. If you remember, getting off the gray list in the task force, the financial task force. Also, some of the infrastructural developments with regards to energy, transport, ports, electricity. So what we can do is we can start saying that we could act as a new regional driver of this kind of growth, that we have both the political and the economic power in order to do that, even though that might be quite debatable at the moment. But nonetheless, I think that's what you would try to sell there. But also, I think we need to continue to play a role as the voice of a global south, as a voice of our continent, to try to continue, irrespective of the difficulties, to get a better deal, to get a bigger voice at the table, to continue to push that more developmental agenda that is oftentimes ignored at the bigger corporates and countries, and to try to say that, if we want as a world to move beyond conflict and constant, competition, that we're going to have to drive a more developmental agenda, and we're going to have to drive a more equal one, which I think is a good message, and one that South Africa is somewhat still, despite our difficulties, still quite well positioned to carry forward.
Dr. McKinley, we'll leave it there for now. Thank you so much for your valuable insights.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Asanda.
Great. Dr. Dale McKinley is political economist, sharing his insights on the World Economic Forum, which gets underway in Davos today. That gathering being themed a spirit of dialogue, leaders from all over the world meeting there to discuss the world's most pressing issues. Among them, as we discussed with Dr. McKinley, AI and the next generation energy technologies and solutions, as well as growth, innovation, and sustainability. Those three major focus themes for that gathering. In the next hour, as we promised, we go to Uganda, give you more analysis for the elections that took place there. And as we warned, internet has been cut and it's partially returned. So we are still having challenges when it comes to the telephonic lines. Do bear with us if the audio isn't as great as it should be, but we're going to try and continue with those conversations. Very important in terms of analysis, observations, and where the country's going there in Uganda.
You're listening to Rise and Shine, and we're coming into the third hour of the program. And you're listening to Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda. But first, let's catch you up with the news as we say good morning to Dwalane Tulo Mwepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. The flood-related death toll in South Africa's Mpumalanga and Limpopo provinces currently stands at 37. In Mpumalanga, 20 people have died, while 17 have died in Limpopo. Incidents of drowning continue to emerge from Palabora, Giyani and Thohoyandou areas of Limpopo. Heavy rains have battered various parts of the province, damaging homes, roads and bridges. Limpopo Disaster Management Centre spokesperson Zakani Baloyi says the province has, however, welcomed the classification of a national disaster in flood-stricken provinces.
MEC Biskop Makamo has expressed his sadness on the rising of the number of fatalities since the beginning of the severe weather condition that has mainly affected Mopani, Vembe, Waterberg and some parts of Sekhukhune districts in Limpopo province. The MEC has sent deepest condolences to the families of 17 people who perished in this severe weather and the affected communities.
Meanwhile, South Africa's Department of International Relations says it has sent SANDF helicopters to look for missing Ekurhuleni MMC Andile Mgwevu, who has gone missing in Mozambique. Mgwevu and 3 other people went missing in Chokwe in Mozambique after their vehicle was swept away by floods. One occupant of the vehicle has been found safe and is in contact with South African rescue teams who are working alongside Mozambican authorities. DIRCO spokesperson Clayson Mungela.
The mission has also made contact with the only person that managed to get out of the vehicle at the time of the incident. It was established that there were 5 people in the vehicle. The status of the other 4, and this includes the MMC, is yet to be confirmed. We've also been told that the South African National Defence Force will send 2 Oryx helicopters to Mozambique to assist with search and rescue operations.
The internet monitoring group NetBlocks says Uganda has deployed social media filtering measures in the aftermath of Thursday's contentious presidential elections, whose results have been dismissed by the opposition. The watchdog says while internet access has largely been restored in Uganda, some content may still be restricted because of the filters. Some connectivity was restored hours after the country's leader of 40 years, Yoweri Museveni, was announced as the election winner. Legal analyst Advocate Bilontle Mbaloi says leader of South Africa's economic freedom fighters Julius Malema has slim chances of escaping a jail term following his conviction last year for the unlawful discharge of a firearm during a 2018 party rally. Malema is set to learn his fate on Friday in the East London Magistrates Court as sentencing looms. The case was brought by lobby group AfriForum. Advocate Baloi has dismissed Malema's claim that the judgment delivered in October was politically motivated.
We have to consider this matter in its entirety and its seriousness. And at the core of this, it's important that we understand what the charge is about and what offence has been committed. At the center of this is contravention of the Firearms Control Act. So we must understand that South Africa in itself has got a firearms problem. There are issues of unlicensed firearms, incidents of shootings that we hear of almost on a day-to-day basis. He has spoken quite a lot on judicial independence and for the upholding of the rule of law. Here's a perfect example of himself now in the dock. He needs to show that indeed he abides with the rule of law and he himself is not above the law.
The Guatemalan President Bernardo Arevalo has declared a 30-day state of emergency in response to the murder of 8 police officers by suspected criminal gangs. Arevalo also announced that the security forces had retaken control of 3 prisons where gang members had been holding dozens of hostages since Saturday. Guatemala's Interior Minister Marco Antonio Velade said he believed the police officers had been murdered in retaliation for the government's refusal to transfer gang leaders to a lower security prison.
Tenemos 7 pandilleros aprehendidos.
We have 7 gang members arrested who were captured either moments before committing an attack or right after carrying out these attacks. We also have 1 gang member dead who was killed by police officers in self-defense after he attacked our agents. We've seized 2 rifles, impounded 2 vehicles and also confiscated a tuk-tuk that these terrorists were using to move around and attack state security forces.
For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Cholani Tulo Wepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Now, sports headline, CAF announces the end of the African Nations Championship. And Carlos Alcaraz kicks off career Grand Slam bid with a tough Australian Open test. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa. From Africa's broadcast capital to the furthest corners of the globe, this is Rise and Shine. Every weekday mornings on Channel Africa.
Yes, indeed, time to have Rise and Shine. And you're listening to the program with Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda, broadcasting live from our studios in Johannesburg, in South Africa, on channelafrica.co.za, and also on our mobile app. Go into your app store, look for SABC Plus, that's SABC Plus, and look for Channel Africa. And of course, Rise and Shine, the best way to start your news and current affairs day each morning between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. Central African Time. Asanda Beda, very good morning to you.
Good morning. We're also live streaming on YouTube at Channel Africa 1 is where you can find us. And that same handle is where you can locate us on the various social media platforms. We are on each and every one of them, so you can't miss us.
So coming up in this next 30 minutes, we do a deep dive into the Ugandan elections, the aftermath. President Yoweri Museveni wins a 7th term with 71% of the vote.
Surprise, surprise.
I tell you, but what surprised me is the size of the win. He was saying he was going to get 80%, but 10 million people didn't show up. I wonder what that tells us.
Yeah, apart from Uganda, we'll be coming back to the country of South Africa and talking about the Limpopo province. Last week we spoke about flooding that erupted there, and we were speaking about how the Kruger National Park, that famous tourist destination, was affected. So now we get an update in terms of that severe flooding in the Limpopo province of South Africa. We know that about 1,600 100 homes have been left damaged and at least 9 people have been dead. I don't know if you've seen the pictures doing the rounds on social media. It looks bad.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like South Africa.
It's scary.
Looks like
and
some Hurricane
it's,
Katrina type of thing.
Yeah, and it's not just South Africa. Hey, neighboring states as well going through the same thing. Mozambique, parts of Zimbabwe as well. So this climate change thing is real, and we're seeing and getting the brunt of it here on the continent.
So yeah, that's what we'll be covering. Those stories and more, of course, coming up.
Africa, voici Abedi.
Oui, c'est moi.
Abedi est un passionné de musique dans l'âme. Il a un goût pour toutes sortes de musique et passe ses journées à écouter Channel Africa.
J'aime beaucoup la musique africaine.
Ok. Devinez quoi? Channel Africa veut aider Abedi et les mélomanes du monde entier à découvrir encore plus de musique incroyable. C'est pourquoi Channel Africa appelle les artistes africains à soumettre leur musique. Chers artistes, n'oubliez pas de nous fournir toutes vos informations pertinentes à l'email adresse musique@channelafrica.co.za. Les soumissions sont votre chance d'être entendues, mais elles ne garantissent pas une playlist. Toutes les soumissions seront soigneusement examinées pour voir si elles répondent aux exigences de notre station. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Download the SABC app and take Channel Africa with you everywhere you go.
Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni is once again the winner of the 2026 presidential election, extending his long hold on power after a tightly watched vote. The focus now shifts to the post-election mood and security situation in the country. Michael Baleke reports from Kampala.
President Yoweri Museveni has won a 7th term with 71% of the vote according to the final tally. His main challenger, Bobi Wine, received 24%. The result extends Mr. Museveni's rule to 4 decades, making him one of Africa's longest-serving leaders. But the outcome is fiercely disputed. Opposition supporters are protesting the vote, calling the election a sham and alleging widespread rigging and voter intimidation. International observer missions also flagged irregularities, restricted media freedom, and heavy-handed security during the voting process. President Museveni's ruling NRM party also secured a strong majority in parliament, consolidating its control. The election exposed deep generational divides in a country where many young people faced unemployment and rising costs, issues that dominated the campaign. For now, the government urges calm while opposition weighs its next steps. Uganda enters a new chapter, but the political divide remains sharply drawn. Michael Baleke, SABC News, Kampala.
All right, so Uganda's presidential election has once again returned Yoweri Museveni to power, extending his leadership that's shaped the country for nearly 4 decades. But beyond the official results, the political temperature remains high, with opposition parties rejecting the outcome completely and questions being raised about the space for any kind of dissent, youth participation, and the future of democratic environment. Well, to help us understand how this moment is being felt on the ground, particularly amongst young Ugandans, we're now joined by Ugandan activist and student leader Aloykin Praise Opoloje. Aloykin, thank you very much indeed for joining us and welcome to the program. I wonder, let's just start from your own personal view. Take us into your world this morning. The mood among young people in Uganda, and particularly where you are.
So most of it is not clearly captured because even though the internet has been restored, there is still a restriction on social media. So we cannot really get the actual feel, but some people have been able to go around this and use their VPN. And I can say the mood is, people are so shocked. People are angry, people are disappointed, but also people are fed up. People are fed up of a dictatorship that is now no longer even trying to appease the people to stay in power, but is imposing itself on the people with military rule. As we speak in Uganda, especially in the central region, there are people already protesting the result and lives are being lost already. The last time I checked, the number of people that had been lost had come up to 14, and those are the ones that we can tell because the internet is not yet back completely, so we do not have information in full, we just have information in part. But also there is a fatigue among most Ugandans concerning the elections as a way to take out the NRM system that has enforced itself in Uganda for such a long time now, close to 4 decades now that they have claimed to have won these elections. But Ugandans are not taking this. Youth, young people are not taking this because not even in Museveni's prime, when he had just come out of the bush and was a darling of Uganda, did he score that percentage? Well, it may seem a small percentage, especially if you juxtapose it with what happened in Tanzania, but with the context of Uganda, this percentage is still so big because not even in his prime had he ever won this. And now when there is more dissent, when there is even a stronger opposition, when there is fatigue of the NRM government, they claim that this is the percentage that he has won. And Ugandans and the opposition and young people are asking for the breakdown of these results. And up to now, we have not yet gotten the breakdown of these results. And how do you expect us to even believe these results when there are clear videos of ballot ticking, ballot stuffing, where we see soldiers were sitting at the benches that people were supposed to tick from their candidates and showing them exactly where to tick, where the army was up and down. The voter turn-up itself was very, very limited. And those that turned up and belonged to the opposition themselves, some were beaten, others were assaulted, hundreds were arrested. As we speak, over 300 members of the opposition, especially who are young people, are behind bars, others are disappeared, and different leaders of the opposition have been disappeared, and we still do not know their whereabouts. So, young people.
So, Alokin, do you believe that the majority of Ugandans, particularly young people, don't want President Museveni anymore?
Yes, I believe that, and I have substantive reasons for believing that. If we go back to the campaigns, the election campaigns that have been happening, you cannot convince a sane or reasonable man that those thousands of people would flock the opposition. They were not drawn there. They were not paid money to be there. They knew the risks of being there. Even after the previous campaigns had people tear gassed, had people shot, they would still go back the next day to support the opposition. And then on the other end, the winning party that won with that kind of majority had to ferry students who are not yet even eligible to vote, give them shots of the NRM to flock these campaigns. And they want to convince us that people that were willing to risk their lives to die did not turn up to vote in the large numbers that they did. Even after they tried to criminalize belonging to the opposition, still people have shown up and showed solidarity to the opposition. It's not the opposition that is bribing, it is the government that was giving out money to voters to come and just show support at a campaign. I mean, to come and eat. They were giving them food, rice, pilau, to come to campaigns. They were trying to try all means possible to pull people towards their campaigns. But the results are completely not reflecting this. But also there are some discrepancies where you find the rigging even just at the MP level, because these elections had the presidential elections, but also the MP elections. And you can clearly see that there are discrepancies. You will find areas where Museveni totally won completely by what they are trying to show to us, but then you come down and find that the opposition, the NRM members that were running at NRM level completely lost. And how voting patterns are in Uganda is that people vote not just individuals, but they vote parties, you understand? So how can you explain that an MP of the NRM will completely lose out and then the president will have this big percentage? And this just did not happen in certain, polling stations or areas or districts. It's a pattern that happened across the country.
So what is the plan? Young people saying that these elections can't be believed. Is there a plan in terms of maybe finding a direction for the country in spite of what's happening?
Well, I can't say there is a concrete plan because the internet is off. You cannot even mobilize. You cannot try to strategize on the way forward. But as the opposition campaign had been, it was for people to go vote, for them to protect their vote, and for them to demand for their vote. So currently, the conversation is around how do we demand for our vote? But of course, we have means that we have already eliminated, things like petitions in court, because for the past 2 elections that have been contested in court, despite overwhelming evidence, the courts always said this was not substantial evidence. You get to overturn an election. So clearly, that is not an option. But also the trend in this election has been that the judiciary itself has been used to criminalize the opposition, and it can no longer be trusted. So we are looking at means that do not really involve using the system that the NRM has already corrupted and taken up towards itself. So it's most likely going to be around the lines of an uprising of the people to demand for their agency to be respected. Yes. So, but there is no concrete plan as of yet.
What's your message to bodies like the East African Community and maybe even the African Union? What do you want to say to them as a young Ugandan?
As a young Ugandan, I'd like to say that I'm completely disappointed in these bodies, especially the African Union, that even after observing all the injustices, even after the observers giving their opinion on this election, that it was not free, it was not fair, people's lives were lost, ballots were printed, they were stuffed, that they came up immediately to acknowledge this elect win of Museveni and not really to inquire into the injustices that happened. We are disappointed as youth of Uganda. I am personally disappointed that a body that is supposed to protect the rights of Africans, the rights of East Africans, is now just entrenching a leadership that has existed to torment Ugandans and completely erode the rule of law. And I can't say I expected better from them. This is a pattern they have maintained. When Tanzania happened, they had to be pushed to the bone for them to release a shaggy statement trying to, show their support for the people of Tanzania. But this is now a pattern, and I must say that I wasn't in any way disappointed because I did not expect any better. It's now no longer news that these bodies are just systems created to entrench personal interests of different leaders across the continent, but also in the region of East Africa. But also, I didn't expect better from Ruto or Samia or, Ethiopia, because still these are dictators even back home. They do not give people justice. So how are they going to give justice to another country which has a fellow dictator? They're just protecting their own sort of, kingdoms that they have created. But that has to change. That cannot be the case. And it's so hard for us to expect change from these very people, like I've already stated, but the institutions themselves should realize that their mandate is to protect the people and not the different presidents of these different states. They need to separate themselves and help Ugandans achieve the justice that they deserve, and that their agency should be respected and that democracy should be upheld.
Aloikin, we're going to have to leave it there, unfortunately, but thank you so much indeed for giving us your time. I know that these kinds of interviews also come with some risk, but thank you so much indeed for sharing your thoughts with us and giving us a glimpse of what it's like to be a young person in Uganda. That was Aloikin Praise Opoloje, who's a Ugandan activist and student leader who is horrified, upset, mad about what's happened in the elections in Uganda.
Got something to say? Are you passionate about issues that matter? Do you have a voice that deserves to be heard? Well, we've got the perfect platform for you. Call in or drop us a WhatsApp on +27 63 406 9126. And we will call you back so you could have your say and be part of the conversation.
30 years of age. I just turned 30 on the 15th of November. So yeah, that's who I am, you know.
It's not just talk. It's your chance to air your views, share your opinion, engage with the community that values your perspective. Follow us on our social media. Visit our website at www.channelafrica.co.za and get ready to share your views on Channel Africa, the African perspective. Channel Africa is evolving, and so are you. Stay connected wherever you are with our brand new website and mobile app. Stream your favorite shows, catch up on African news, culture, and conversations, all at your fingertips.
Africa is just a tap away.
Your world, your stories, now on the go.
Stay connected wherever you are.
Visit channelafrica.co.za or download the Channel Africa app today. Channel Africa, the African perspective. A fresh morning, a fresh perspective. Stay tuned to Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Severe flooding in South Africa's Limpopo province has left more than 1,600 homes damaged and at least 9 people dead as communities struggle to cope with the destruction. Humanitarian organizations are racing to deliver aid, but damaged roads and infrastructure are hampering relief efforts. Joining us now is Ali Sablé, who is spokesperson and project manager for Gift of the Givers, to explain how the organization is responding and what more needs to be done. Ali, good morning, and thank you for making time to catch us up.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Can you give us an overview then of what things are looking like in Limpopo? How are communities affected by the floods coping?
You know, the destruction has been huge. Many of the highways and local roads completely washed away, leaving many villages and districts completely cut off. As you correctly said in your introduction, our humanitarian aid distribution was hampered by roads becoming inaccessible. Tuesday and Wednesday, we made use of the airspace when we were given helicopters by the local provincial government as well as the SANDF. And flying over the area, we could see the state of destruction. We do know the death toll in both Limpopo and Mpumalanga is currently standing at 37. There are many communities still cut off. It's still raining. We were hoping by today the rain would have subsided, allowing us to access communities that's been calling us non-stop and informing us that there's no food, no water. On the other side, water plants have completely washed away, food has been contaminated, and people are still waiting for relief efforts to come in. Gift of the Givers, as though all credit due to the Mpumalanga Premier Ndlovu, the Kochta team, the provincial disaster management teams, who, when our teams arrived on the ground, already worked out alternative routes for our teams to access the areas. And within 24 hours on Wednesday, our team managed to access 800 households in 4 districts: Chief, Albert Latuli, Mpumalanga, Umkondu, and Nkomazi. We do know Nkomazi is still partly cut off, but our teams will be making their way through there. And in Limpopo, our team is currently focusing in Palabora and Giyani. And in the next few days, we'll be moving into the areas of Vembe. And we do know as well, there's many towns around the Kruger National Park completely cut off. That's a key focus at the moment as communities are going into the 5th day without any humanitarian aid coming in.
What kinds of aid are being prioritized at the moment, and how are you addressing the needs of the most vulnerable, like children, the elderly, and the people with disabilities?
All credit due to faith-based organizations like churches, etc., who has opened up community halls to accommodate the elderly and children. We are activating non-perishable food parcels that can last family for 2 to 3 weeks, as well as clean drinking water, some detergents, some hygiene packs, baby formula and baby care packs. We do know the areas are quite vast, and as soon as our teams leave in the morning, getting the go-ahead to come to a certain area, example in the case of Mabua village in Kiani, in Palabora, As soon as our teams were about to enter the area, heavy rains came down again and the water level rised. We then had to make use of 4x4 smaller vehicles to get into the area. Logistically, we are being assisted by the provincial and local disaster management teams. So our teams not leaving is using all resources possible to reach out to the families. The next few days will be crucial, and we have brought in additional resources and stocks from our warehouses in Gauteng, so that when we get the go ahead to go into a certain area, stocks and manpower will be easily available to reach those affected.
As you say, you've worked with local authorities and other provinces as well, and that collaboration is helping, especially in the challenges you face in accessing roads and infrastructure because of destruction. Mentioning there that the provincial government has helped also with supplying a chopper to reach some of those areas. But what message would you like to send to donors then and the wider public who want to support the people of Limpopo and Mpumalanga?
As we do know, it's been declared a national disaster now. In Mpumalanga, over 2,000 homes affected. The humanitarian operation is going to be huge. There's no numbers to put exactly yet as to the number of people affected, but going to village and see the levels of destruction is going to be a huge humanitarian operation. There's going to be great need in terms of supporting these communities in terms of non-perishable food parcels with clean drinking water, which is a great concern at the moment. We'll be rolling out these bottles of water to hospitals and clinics as well. So there's no hindering in terms of service delivery, in terms of healthcare. We do know some schools are still closed due to the inaccessibility of roads and of the great threat of rain coming down. And all credit due to the authorities for not opening the schools. There have been a greater tragedy of vehicles traveling on the road. We do know what happened in Umtata last year in the 10th of June 2025, when the level warning in a few hours went from level warning 6 to level warning 9, and in that disaster 103 people died. So we are asking communities to exercise caution, to not be on the road unnecessarily, and to follow the call from the disaster officials, whether to stay in your homes or whether to evacuate. That will make, in terms of delivery, much easier going into these areas. And we do know dams are overflowing, the river banks have burst, and there's quite a concern. If some dam walls burst, that will be a second disaster in terms of water flowing down into the areas in the low-lying area.
Right. Ali, thank you so much for this update and for the work that you are doing there as Doctors Without Borders.
Thank you.
Ali Sablé is spokesperson and project manager for Gift of the Givers, updating us on relief efforts in South Africa's Limpopo province. Of course, Gift of the Givers being a humanitarian aid organization that steps in situations like these to help out. 8:30 Central African time it is. Let's get our news headlines. Here's Jalani Tulo Mwepe.
SABC News headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. Making headlines, the South African Local Government Association is calling for urgent national action to strengthen disaster management systems. The Action SA and the Democratic Alliance parties in South Africa are calling for an urgent investigation into reports that senior SANDF officials defied President Cyril Ramaphosa's orders during naval drills in Simonstown. The president had reportedly instructed that Iran be excluded from the exercises, but Iranian warships reportedly took part. And finally, an international medical trial is investigating whether a simple finger prick blood test can be used to diagnose Alzheimer's disease. I will have details on these and other stories at 9 o'clock.
SABC News headlines. The African Perspective.
Right, it's time now to take a look at what's been happening in the world of sport. And Figile Lingwati is at the desk. And Brafix, well, the AFCON, what a way for it to end. And I guess good news for those in North Africa.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Indeed. It was a dramatic final of AFCON in Morocco. But let's start off with what's happening in Australia right now. Carlos Alcaraz began his Australian Open campaign with a straight sets victory over Adam Walton on Sunday. World number 1 Alcaraz needed just 2 hours and 5 minutes to begin his campaign in Melbourne, defeating home favourite Walton 6-3, 7-6-2, 6-2 inside the Rod Laver Arena. After a comfortable opening set, Alcaraz wobbled slightly in the second set, following a breakdown to the world number 81st, though quickly returned the tables back in his favour to claim a fairly straightforward victory. The Spaniard enters as the joint heavy favourite for the Australian Open title alongside main rival and world number 2 Jannik Sinner, who is the 2-time defending champion inside Melbourne Park. Now rugby news. The Springbok Women's Sevens claimed the inaugural HSBC Sevens title in Dubai with a 12-5 victory over Argentina. The South Africans finished the weekend unbeaten, winning all 5 matches at the Sevens Stadium. Zintle Mpupa, that's her late try, leveled the scores before Patience Mugoni crossed the win with a minute to play. Nadine Ross adding the conversion to seal the win. Earlier, the Bog women beat Poland in the semi-final to secure qualification for the HSBC Sevens 2 series, which continues in Nairobi, Montevideo, and Sao Paulo. Now, motor racing. Qatar's Nasser Al Attiyah won the Dakar Rally for the 6th time in the car category as Argentina Luciano Benavides won by 2 seconds on 2 wheels, the narrowest margin ever. Al Attiyah, with built-in co-driver Fabian Lequin, had led overnight after taking his 50th career stage win and made no mistakes as he handed Dacia a first victory at their second attempt in the 2-week event held entirely in Saudi Arabia. Al Attiyah is excited to win.
We work very hard for this, It's not easy because it's 13 days, in the desert, and I'm really so happy for it.
Benavides had earlier taken the motorcycle title after American Ricky Brabeck lost his way and saw victory slip through his fingers, and the Argentine was in disbelief.
It's unreal. I cannot believe it. I never stopped dreaming. Today I wake up with full of energy, full of motivation, thinking just on myself, on what I can do, and try to trust on me. That was the key for the success this Dakar, and I did it for myself. This is unreal, and to win by just 2 seconds is unreal. I missed the last 2 corners. I almost died out there, but it paid off. I cannot describe this moment. It's unreal.
For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fikile Lungwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Still to come on Rise and Shine, we go back to Uganda and give you more analysis in terms of election results there. This time we'll be speaking to a political analyst in how things are panning out in the country following the announcement of Yoweri Museveni, the president, being president again for the 7th time. We also go to Malawi, where the country has signed a 5-year bilateral health and cooperation memorandum of understanding with the United States. We'll find out more about what that entails.
Hi there. Do you want to elevate your business and give it a voice in South Africa and Africa as a whole? Well, in that case, let Channel Africa make this a possibility. Channel Africa is willing to advertise your business for as little as 30,000 rands or $1,719.18. To get access to these great rates, send all requests to mokoenata@SABC. That's MOKOENATA@SABC. Channel Africa, the African Perspective. Conversations are happening, and Channel Africa is at the heart of them. We tell the African story with clarity, pride, and purpose, reaching audiences that matter to your brand. Partner with us and connect your business with listeners across borders in multiple languages and markets. For partnership opportunities, sponsorship, or sales, email us at partnership@channelafrica.co.za. Channel Africa, the African Perspective. Call us on +27 63 406 9126 and contribute to the conversation.
Let's check in with the world of business now. We get our economics update, the latest from Nosipho Zuma.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Good morning. In your business news this hour, Libya's central bank has announced a 14.7% devaluation of the dinar. The move set the exchange rate at 6.3759 dinar to the US dollar, the currency's second such adjustment in less than a year, citing the nation's political and economic turmoil. The move follows a 13.3% devaluation in April 2025, which has set the exchange rate at 5.5677 dinars to the US dollar. Libya has signed a strategic partnership with international firms to expand and develop the Misurata Free Zone MFZ that has attracted an estimated $2.7 billion in investment. Now, this is according to the Prime Minister, Abdullah Hamid Beda. Beda says the agreement will help the project generate operating revenues estimated at around $500 million annually. The Misurata Free Zone signed the agreement with port operator Terminal Investment Limited, which is expected to help MFZ's port become a competitive logistics hub between Africa, Europe, and the Middle East. The executive board of the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, has completed the latest review of Ethiopia's current financial program. The move will lead to the disbursement of around $261 million to the government. Ethiopia secured its $3.4 billion lending program with the IMF in 2024 as part of a far-reaching economic reforms package that also includes an overhaul of its external debt. Staff of the fund and the government reached a deal on the review, the fourth under the program, last month. 8 European countries have warned that U.S. tariff threats over control of Greenland threatened transatlantic relations and risk a dangerous downward spiral. The latest response from key NATO countries, including U.S. allies France, Germany and the United Kingdom, among others, comes after U.S. President Donald Trump threatened additional tariffs on countries that had sent small contingents of troops to Greenland for military exercises amid concerns about the region's security. Showing by Peace reports that Greenland is a self-governing territory of the Kingdom of Denmark.
The joint statement by Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, the Netherlands, Norway, Sweden and the United Kingdom also said that the pre-coordinated Danish military exercises conducted with allies responded to a commitment to strengthen Arctic security and pose no threat to anyone. Trump threatened an additional 10% tariff on the 8 countries, increasing to 25% on June 1st until the US was able to purchase Greenland.
And finally, the aid agency Oxfam says that the increased wealth of the richest people on the planet is deepening economic and political divides. As the world's political and business elite gather in Swiss resort of Davos for the World Economic Forum, Oxford says the fortunes of global billionaires jumped 16% in 2025. Amita Behar is the organization's executive director.
This is a year where you see the billionaires actually reach $18.3 trillion of wealth. And just last year, they have added $2.5 trillion to their kitty. And that amount is enough to eradicate poverty 26 times over.
Your financial indicators: $1 US in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 418, and Botswana is 13 pula 22. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 43, and in Zambia it's 19 kwacha 89. The BRICS countries: $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 real 37. Russia is 78 rubles 56. India, it's 90 rupees and 25. China at 6 yuan 97, and in South Africa $1 is trading at 16 rand 42. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $4,658 and platinum at $2,357 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $64.14 a barrel. Now, for any stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I'm Nosi Pozuma.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. 60 years of stories, sounds, and spirits. Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
All right, let's focus again on the situation in Uganda. We've been unpacking this story because it is topical, significant, and has significant repercussions in many respects. So the country enters a new political chapter following the re-election of President Yoweri Museveni. Attention is turning to what this outcome means for governance, for stability, and democratic practice, not just within Uganda, but also across the African continent. Well, for some analysis, we're now joined by Dr. Charles Sinkala, who's a political analyst and convener of the African People's Union. Dr. Sinkala, always good to talk to you. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you very much, and greetings to you and the listeners.
As we start to unpack the post-election landscape in Uganda, what stands out for you in terms of how this process has unfolded and where we are now? Hello, Dr. Sinkala, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I just missed you there. The line broke.
I was just saying that as we enter this post-election era for Uganda, what stands out for you in terms of the process itself and also where we are now in Uganda?
Well, post the elections now is quite fragile. I think many people, the citizens in particular, and the international community expected a different outcome. Has to accept and heal from the process that Yoweri Kaguta Museveni has been re-elected as president of Uganda. Secondly, that whoever aggrieved parties, from the opposition who feel that the elections were not free and fair, and if they have evidence, they can challenge that through the court processes. But I think if we look at the statistics, that 52% was the turnout of the voters out of 7.9 million people, brings something that has to be interrogated on how, why the voter turnout is only at 50%. Voting or participating in the dominate.
All right, Dr. Sinkala, we're really struggling with your line. I'm gonna try once more. Let's hope that it might be a little bit more stable. With so many questions about the credibility of this election, previous ones as well, is his mandate sustainable, given what we've seen in other countries and the youth in particular saying we've had enough of these kinds of things?
Well, Peter, it's always has been boiled down to the culture of the African people. Traditionally, if we go back in history, our leaders, stayed until their death. That is traditional leaders who presided over communities. And that subsequently was changed when we imported the democratic process. That every 5 years they have to change government, or new people has to be re-elected, whether or not the situation is okay. These are issues that people go into a political campaign, meaning that automatically they will be mix of the democratic processes, and as well as historically how we've been governed. Culturally, in Uganda is not different from Zimbabwe, Pira, because many people are loyal to Kaguta Yoweri Museveni and his National Liberation, National Resistance Party, and many other aspects.
All right, so we're going to have to leave it there. I think we're struggling with the line there with Dr. Sinkala, but sharing his thoughts with us in terms of the Ugandan elections, saying that, look, those that are aggrieved by the results have got avenues that they can explore in terms of how they can get the results adjudicated by the courts. Many in Uganda will say, but the courts have been captured by the NRM and therefore nothing will change. So the question is, if we put it all into perspective and we think about what that young person told us earlier, might we see an uprising of sorts? Might we see the youth taking to the streets? There have been some demonstrations already, but as you can imagine, the machinery of the Ugandan government and security forces is of such might that these probably will quickly be put down. So, Kaguta Yoweri Museveni is president for the 7th time. All right, coming up after the 9 o'clock news is Rise and Shine's sister program, On the Move. And to tell us what's coming up, we have Palesa in studio. Good morning.
Who's the big brother or the big sister between us?
I think you guys are the big brother and sister. Ben and I are obviously the little brother and the little sister.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Good, thanks. How are you? How was the weekend?
The weekend was all right. Well, we're here and we're looking forward to the Monday. And today we're going to start off a conversation about sexual exploitation, something that the world of technology has also further exacerbated, with young people always seeking for opportunities, but being even more susceptible to be exploited sexually through needing opportunities. So we'll be unpacking that in the first hour of the show. And then we go into an African view. There's been a lot of discourse on social media, and today's debate will be speaking about whether or not the boy child is being left behind.
Okay. When you say left behind, what do we mean?
Well, there's so many reasons.
Yeah.
People are on social media and saying, oh, the boy child is being left behind in education, in society, you know, in all these different ways.
Yeah, the general belief is that men have had opportunities more than women have. So to catch us up, we need to focus on the girl child, expose her to more opportunities and support her more than the boy child. So in that sense, I think boys are being left behind in that sense.
Do you think so?
But I don't know if that negatively impacts on what we're trying to achieve as a society.
Do you know,
in that sense.
I think our culture is so strong, it is so patriarchal, that the system is going to make sure that the boy doesn't get left behind. I don't know, it's going to take a while. Maybe I'm wrong, but maybe because I've got children as children, daughters, I find I have to keep on fighting for my girl children more than the boys. I as a boy never had to work hard. The system just made it easy for us. And when you see what happens for women, I don't know. I think there's so much work. It'll be interesting to hear actually what your thoughts are.
Who are you talking to on that one?
Stay tuned for the debate. No, it's going to be debate between men's mental health advocate and host of Men's Conference podcast, Wandile Dladla, and Kata Mina, who's a gender justice consultant.
Yeah, because I'd be interested to hear the psychosocial side of things there as well.
I do think, though, that having said all of that, that mental health is one area for sure, because we are the ones committing suicide much more than women. So there must be a reason, and we're not dealing with that, and never dealt with it actually. So I'm curious about that.
All right, stay tuned to On the Move for that.
I'm fascinated. I'm going to be listening.
The Midnight Snack, 12 to 3 a.m.
Our fitness coach, her name is Yvonne Dimakatso Pasha. How to remain consistent with gyms, Dima, and I'm going to put you on the spot right now. As we are talking, I will send you my picture and I want you to tell me what you think I should work on. Because, you know, when I look at myself, Dima, I think I'm very handsome. I'm so good looking, like, oh my goodness. Like here at Channel Africa where I work, I think I'm one of the most good looking people ever. Like sometimes when I look at myself in the mirror, I never get used to how good I look. I'm just amazing.
You're okay with the way you're looking. You wish people could and now you want to put me on the spot.
Do I need gym?
Yeah. I mean, if you can just consider eating healthy, cutting down a few foodstuffs such as junk.
The Midnight Snack, every Monday, 12 to 3 a.m. with Chanduko Ligege. From Cape to Cairo, Dakar to Dar es Salaam, rise and shine with Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda on Channel Africa.
The United States and the government of Malawi have signed a 5-year bilateral health cooperation Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU. The Memorandum of Understanding sets a new course for national ownership, co-investment, and measurable results. Under the arrangement, the United States intends to provide up to $792 million over the next 5 years to support Malawi's efforts to combat HIV/AIDS, malaria, and other infectious diseases and bolster disease surveillance and outbreak response. Malawi will increase its overall annual health spending by an additional $143.8 million during this life of the MOU. Sisi Sechalo has more on the story.
The Malawian Ministry of Health and Sanitation has highlighted that 47% of their healthcare funding comes from donors and partners. They say the withdrawal of donor funding in the form of USAID early last year had a negative effect on the healthcare service delivery. The spokesperson for the ministry, Adrian Chikumbe, says the current agreement is a result of the negotiations between the two countries.
In the absence of donor aid, we need about $1 billion per year to sustain our services, and so this is why the $702 million is going to make a huge difference, and this is going to be in 4 areas, especially government to government, reinforcing, making sure that there's ownership and sustainability, and we also want to make sure that there's health security and preparedness. We also want to make sure that there's primary health care and equity. We want no one left behind. But also, fourthly, we would like to make sure that there's sustainability and transition. You know, we've got our long-term plans to make sure that we increase on our resource envelope. So we developed a national health financing strategy, but that's in the long term. So this is why in the immediate term, this funding is critical.
Meanwhile, in Malawi, some of the role players have welcomed the agreement. A non-governmental organization in the country, International Coalition on Health Financing Advocacy, has also acknowledged that the withdrawal of aid last year dealt them a heavy blow. They say Malawi is still growing, and they have seen a dissertation of hospitals which will require more support in the long and short term. Chairperson of the International Coalition on Health Financing Advocacy is Maziko Matemba.
So the coming of this grant agreement is a relief because our health system, almost 70% of the resources are foreign funded. Our domestic resources for health is minimal. According to the budget, it's about 9.2% of the national budget. So U.S. government is one of the key donors which normally support our healthcare system in Malawi.
Some of the areas that the funding will be directed at include HIV and AIDS. Matemba would like the funding to also go towards maternal, newborn, and child health.
Malawi is still a country where maternal mortality is still a challenge, and also issues of adolescent health, but also issues of HIV and AIDS. We're still registering new infections among girls, adolescents, but also men. So it requires additional more support because the challenge which we have as a country financially, our fiscal space is too challenged. We have a huge domestic and foreign debt, which government has to pay over time. And with that, social service at the risk of not getting much, which we can, despite that we have been pushing that government need to allocate at the minimum of 15% according to the African Union commitment of 2000 and 2019. So we still need support from foreign support so that we can complement what is happening to avoid collapsing the whole service system.
For Channel Africa, I'm Sisi Sekhalo in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Right, let's take you back in history now. And today, in 1960, the Belgio-Congolese Round Table Conference began. Now, this was a pivotal conference opened in Brussels between Belgian political leaders and representatives of the Belgian Congo, now DR Congo, including at the time Patrice Lumumba. Now, the negotiations held during this period were the decisive steps that led to the independence of Congo from Belgium just months later on June the 30th, 1960. Sadly, though, months after that, Patrice Lumumba was assassinated. And it's widely accepted. And in fact, Belgium later formally acknowledged its moral responsibility for his death in a 2002 parliamentary inquiry of declassified documents and historical research have also shown that the United States and other Western governments were involved in efforts to remove Lumumba from power, though they were not directly responsible for carrying out the execution. So the execution itself, believed to be local opposition figures, but the hand was literally from quite far, and a historical moment in Uganda, DRC's history.
And that's how we say goodbye as the Rise and Shine team, and we hand you over to the On The Move team. That's me, Asanda, Beda, and Peter Ndoro saying goodbye for now.
Stay tuned to Channel Africa. Stream us on our new and updated website, channelafrica.co.za.
Good morning. It's almost 9 a.m. Central Africa time, and it is time for On The Move with myself, Palesa Tau. Stay with us for the next 3 hours, but first, let's get our latest news update.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Top stories are Salga calls for urgent national action to strengthen disaster management systems and an international medical trial on Alzheimer's. Good morning. I'm Jolani Tulo Wepe. The South African Local Government Association, SALGA, is calling for urgent national action to strengthen disaster management systems. Government has declared a national disaster in provinces hit by severe flooding, including KwaZulu-Natal, Mpumalanga, Limpopo, and the Western Cape, which have also faced fires. SALGA chairperson for Emergency Services and Disaster Management Working Group, Mluleki Nkosi, says affected municipalities are struggling to cope due to resource constraints.
The primary hurdle is the misalignment between legislative responsibility and fiscal allocation. So currently, disaster management is often treated as a shared function, which leads to accountability gap. So there is also a reactive culture where funding is unlocked after a disaster occurs, rather than being invested in the previous disaster before it occurs.
Meanwhile, the flood flood-related death toll in South Africa's Mpumalanga and Limpopo provinces currently stands at 37. In Mpumalanga, 20 people have died, while 17 have died in Limpopo. Incidents of drowning continue to emerge from Phalaborwa, Giyani, Thohoyandou areas of Limpopo. Heavy rains have battered various parts of the province, damaging homes, roads and bridges. Limpopo Disaster Management Centre spokesperson Zakani Baloyi says the province has, however, welcomed the classification of a national disaster in flood-stricken provinces.
MEC Biskop Makamo has expressed his sadness on the rising of the number of fatalities since the beginning of the severe weather condition that has mainly affected Mopani, Vembe, Waterberg and some parts of Sekhukhune districts in Limpopo province. The MEC has sent deepest condolences to the families of 17 people who perished in this severe weather and the affected communities.
Moving on to other news, the Action SA and